Good afternoon, everybody. Did everybody find their seat already? Great to see so many of you here at Kalastajatorppa, and also welcome to those of you who are joining today online. As you know, we are exploring today the future of the Finnish health data ecosystem, covering both future perspectives as well as applications for global R&D. My name is Maria Ritola. I will be moderating today's discussions. My own background is in AI, which of course is one of the angles we will be delving into in today's program. So one practical thing on the practical side of things, this event will be live streamed. And you can also ask questions online on YouTube chat if you have those questions. Mics will also be circulating in the room every time we will have time for questions. But to officially open this event, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our first speaker, Päivi Sillanauke, Special Envoy for Health and Wellbeing of Finland at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health. So Päivi Sillanauke, warm welcome. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon and welcome on behalf of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health Finland. Taking into account the current situation globally, it's crucial for Europe's competitiveness that Europe is an attractive location for research and innovation, offering stable conditions for both public and private actors. Finland, being a global forerunner in many ways, for example, in regards of the parliamentary commitment to offer and develop an enabling R&D environment, supports EU's life science strategies, cross-governance and patient-centered approach, as well as the goals of increasing clinical trials and improving the use of health data and AI. We have already learned that care must be taken to ensure that the requirements arising from legislation and the approval processes for trials or access to health and well-being data do not become too burdensome for actors. Our politicians and decision makers have shown the courage and willingness to iteratively solve the challenges in legislation and regulation, but at the same time considering the protection of citizens' fundamental rights, health and safety. Under a current government's health and well-being growth and RDI program that I'm in charge of, we are making changes to our secondary use of the social and health data and research legislation, as well as improving smooth and safe access to our rich data registers. We are developing innovative mechanisms with the help of new technology and AI to process and learn from our rich data. We want to find out ways to speed up and streamline innovation chains from basic research to the exploitation of research results, commercialization and scaling innovations. We have an ambitious goal to strengthen the national level collaboration and coordination so that Finland can offer advanced national level RDI ecosystem to innovate and solve global challenges benefiting people's health and well-being and building resilient societies. You will hear about current opportunities, but also visions and plans during this afternoon. It is essential to have an open dialogue about the visions and suggestions you will hear today. By getting your inputs, we can improve the plans and make the implementation of them more likely. I urge you to be active to help us to make most of this afternoon. Are you ready? Let's begin.
Big thank you to Päivi. And we will now actually continue to the first part of the program, which is public-private partnerships fueling ecosystem readiness for global-scale research. And at the beginning, we will hear reflections on the landmark FINGen study, highlighting the factors that have enabled its success so far. And also, we will cover the developments that are needed to fully realize the potential of large-scale health research. So let's give a warm welcome to Arno Palotie, Scientific Director of FinnGen and Research Director at Institute for Molecular Medicine Finland, University of Helsinki. And right after Arno, we will actually shift to the industry perspective and their experience as a FinnGen partner. Join me in welcoming Mark McCarthy, Principal Fellow and Executive Director of Human Genetics at Genentech. So let's give big applause. The floor is yours, Arno.
So, dear audience, and also those ones who didn't participate in the FinnGen face-to-face meeting, to whom this subject is very familiar. So I'm going a little bit on the more surface level for those ones who don't quite haven't followed FinnGen in detail. So FinnGen is a public-private partnership, and when you think of a project of this sort, which started 2017 and it has been now going for 8 years. So there are various phases. The quite first one is, of course, the planning phase, but the next one is the construction phase, which was from 2017 to 2023. The next one is using the maintenance of the resource and how to use it. And that's something where we are currently. But we also need to be looking on the next phase, how to move forward and what is needed in the next few years so that what we have built can be used as a base. And we need to be, of course, be aware of items that don't smoothen the ride, that we need to be prepared for unexpected events. If we go into what was done during the construction phase, so yes, we built a resource of 550,000 samples with the help of all the biobanks. So that was an infrastructure, but that was also built at the time. We translated those samples into genetic information so that some 520,000 individuals are genetically profiled. We collected health data and developed them into useful disease endpoints, as we call them. And we built trusted research environment, what we call the FinnGen sandbox, which is now also translated to another similar environment, which was not the minor work either. But what about then when we harvest the data? So when we use the data that we have built towards asking questions like we call them aims in our research plan, understanding disease trajectories. So not only that what are the genetic susceptibility aspects and variants that increase the risk of a disease, but what are the items that influence the trajectory of the disease after, for instance, when the disease have already been diagnosed. And then, of course, to understand what these variants actually do in a biological mean, not just a catalog of variants. So for those ones, we need again new other tools. Omics, one of the major improvement has been collection of 211 million clinical lab tests from the Kanta database, and remembering that the data from these registers and databases are just raw data. There's a huge input that has been done to harmonize the data so that we also can use it with international studies. And improving the analysis tools has been a further very big initiative. Well, it has resulted in some 2,600 publications and over 600 analysis proposals. And what is key is that we don't study one disease at a time, but we have a whole set, the entire disease repertoire that the participants have had that has not been always easy to understand by everyone, but why this is so important that we don't just have a slice, but we have the whole data. And however, we have focused then on certain diseases where there has been special interest and special reason to look into more closely, that we have called the clinical task forces. But as said, the genetic discovery is not enough. That's not, otherwise it's just a list of genes and gene variants. As one of my colleagues says, if that is what we achieve, we have failed royally. But moving from genetic discovery to new therapeutics is a long path, and we need other types of next step approaches to that. And that's where we are looking towards the next phase of FinnGen. How would that look like? To understand the disease trajectory, functional studies to understand biological consequences, to use the longitudinal data that is so unique for the Nordic countries to address these questions. And to remember that when we started in 2017, there were very few of these type of studies. Now there are globally several of them. How do we take advantage of that? How do we combine our data on a global scale so that we can really address questions that need to be addressed to improve health and diagnostics and treatment? And some of those questions or methods include meta-analysis from these multiple international studies, adding more deeper phenotypes, developing new analytical tools, part of them being something that you could call with a wording AI, expanding omics analysis, and possibly expanding the cohort. So, but what has FinnGen so provided for the ecosystem, as this is now a session of that? It's probably fair to say that it's building a sample of resource for biobanks, data resource for research, a computing environment, harmonized health data, enabling genetic and health data research in an entire nation, none of them being quite trivial things to achieve. And when we ask abroad, typically we get the message that it has increased the global visibility. And then indirectly, Business Finland and Tekes at the time when it provided seed funds for the project hoped that there would be, it would stimulate startup activities. And one we heard today, the SwitchPoint Bio, it's an example of such type of indirect effects that we have. You should never, in a project like this, expect direct economical kind of revenues. That's a concept of failure. These effects are indirect, and this is a type of things we like to see. So thank you, and then we move over to...
Thanks, Arno, and it's great to be here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to say a few words about the perspective of FinnGen from the pharma side of things. So I'm Mark McCarthy. I head up human genetics at Genentech, which is some of you know is part of the Roche family based in South San Francisco. So yeah, there's no doubt that FinnGen is a unique public-private partnership in so many ways. It brings together so many parts of the Finnish ecosystem, and it's brought together so many pharma companies over nearly a decade now. So there must be some reason why we keep coming here, and that reason really has to do with how adroitly FinnGen addresses many of the needs of pharma. We depend on access to large-scale genetic, genomic, and clinical data sets for so many reasons, to provide insights into causal human biology, to drive our discovery programs, to help stratify patients, to accelerate clinical development in so many ways. And FinnGen and the other efforts in this space that Arno mentioned have really had a huge catalytic effect on biomedical science in general, but for pharma, they've pointed to discoveries that hopefully will lead to novel therapies that have impact on patients. At the root of all of this, of course, is the power of human genetics. That's human genetics, as I often say, it's in vivo functional biology in the species that we care most about. It can give us specific insights into human biology that come from the causal inference that's possible from human genetics. So the things we like about human genetics in pharma are it's in humans, it provides causal, not correlative insights, and as many of you know, it's been proven that it works, that targets for which there's genetic support have 2 to 3-fold increased prospects of successfully navigating the drug discovery pipeline. And that's because they impact on efficacy and our understanding of what targets are going to be therapeutically valuable, can tell us something about safety, it can help us identify biomarkers, it can give us mechanistic insights, and it can help stratify patients and advance the cause of personalized medicine. So often the way I think about it and how I describe how human genetics plays a role in pharma and the things that we do is shown on this side. And I'm just going to illustrate how FinnGen has really contributed to all of these. At the core of these, this is the ability of human genetics to identify genotype-phenotype correlations and use that to have impact through mechanistic and translational insights. I'll come back to that in a minute. But to get to those genotype-phenotype correlations, of course, we have to generate data, and we need both the genotypes and as broad a survey of genetic space as possible, and we need as many phenotypes as possible, and then the combination of those we can combine. So this is a slide that sort of illustrates some of the things that we do at Genentech in terms of data assets, but I'm sure my colleagues in other pharma companies would have something similar. And just to take you through it, we analyze data from our internal clinical trials, many of which we do whole genome sequencing on. We have broad collaborations and BD deals, often in particular disease areas. And then, of course, we work with many biobanks, including FinnGen. And a lot of our work is triangulating between these different data sets. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. One is our clinical trials are great in terms of giving us very specific and detailed clinical information, but they're often pretty small. On the other hand, the biobanks are huge, give us access to multiple phenotypes, but often with a little less granularity at the phenotypic side. And the other thing I'll draw your attention to is that although, of course, we're interested in the factors that influence disease risk, we're particularly interested in the factors that impact on disease progression. After all, we're generally treating people who've got established disease, and our goal is to reduce the progression and occasionally to cure people, but that reduction in progression is critical, and therefore we're really dependent on understanding not just the factors that lead to risk, but the factors that influence rates of progression. And that's been historically much harder to get access to those data. We get some of that information from our clinical trials, but it's the rich and longitudinal clinical data that we get from projects like FinnGen that is going to prove pivotal. So the reasons why we came to Finland are pretty obvious. All of you will know about the specific genetic architecture of the Finnish population that provides particular opportunities. What? Yeah, it's slightly younger. Do you recognize yourself? Yeah. Particular opportunities for genetic discovery. The rich clinical data that's available in Finland, the clinical infrastructure as personified by the biobanks that powers a lot of the discovery, and then, of course, the extraordinary wealth of scientific expertise that's available in Finland. So that's allowed us to expand the genetic space, as I was saying, not just simply in terms of numbers, but also thinking about diversity. As many of you know, so many of the samples that we have in these large biobanks come from Europe, and Finland is clearly culturally European, but that specific genetic architecture adds a dimension that we wouldn't get from UK Biobank and so on. Genetics alone is not sufficient. We need to expand that phenotype space with clinical phenotypes, imaging in labs, and molecular data. Again, as you'll know, FinnGen is a particularly rich source of the clinical data, and as shown on the top row, an expanding amount of molecular data as well. And just to give you a couple of examples of how this has panned out, this is a favorite example of many of us. This was a Finnish specific allele in around the gene TNRC18, which is associated very clearly and very strongly with inflammatory bowel disease, not seen in other populations because this allele is about 100 times more frequent in Finland as elsewhere. That's one of many, many examples. And in addition, certainly we at Genentech, and I'm sure it's true of my other pharma colleagues, don't just rely on new discoveries from FinnGen. FinnGen is one of the places we go to follow up something that's interesting from other sources. In this case, we've done a rare variant burden test in age-related macular degeneration, picked up a potentially interesting signal in a gene called SLC16A8, which is a lactate transporter, but it wasn't genome-wide significant. And then we were able to go to AREDS, which is a longitudinal data set we hold internally, as well as the FinnGen to get the corroboration that gives you the statistical confidence that this is a real signal and something you may want to follow up on. So those are some of the ways in which FinnGen has contributed data. The magic lies at the intersection of the genetics and the phenotype and generating those the knowledge that comes from those genotype-phenotype associations. This often doesn't get the glory that it should do because there's a huge amount of work that has to go in to wrangling the data, developing statistical methods, implementing them, and then sifting through the results, visualizing them and interpreting them. And certainly we've benefited hugely from the centralized statistical analysis team based in Helsinki and in Boston that's really propelled and accelerated discovery. A lot of this was laid out in this fantastic paper that many of you have seen that was published in Nature and has been cited. I meant to look up how many times it's been cited, but it's been cited a lot, which just shows how much impact this has had. Thanks to one of the colleagues from Sanofi who sent me this slide, which I think illustrates how powerful this has been as a discovery tool. What you see on the right-hand side there are the number of gene-disease pairs. So information that's come from genetics linking a gene to causal role in disease. And the orange bars show the total data, including FinnGen, and the blue bars show the data without FinnGen, based on accumulation of data in open targets and so on. And you can see that the FinnGen's really doubled the number of identified signals just on its own. So I've talked so far about historically really what we were doing the first 6 years of FinnGen, which was around accumulating the data and generating this knowledge. Really what we've turned to in the last few years is really in many ways a much more challenging exercise. That's not to demean the huge amount of work that went into the early phases, but how do we actually take that knowledge and have impact? How do we use that knowledge to understand the mechanisms of disease a bit better? And how do we use that to have translational impact? So genetics is just the start. I think one of the things that's been quite salutary, there's been a lot of success in human genetics for common diseases, hundreds of thousands of hits identified, but it's proven very challenging, particularly for those variants that don't map to coding regions, to be able to translate that into a mechanistic understanding of disease. And I won't go into the detail of that, but one of the big gaps really has been the ability to identify people who've got interesting variants and then do more detailed biology on those individuals. Because there are things in humans you can't reproduce in a cell or an organoid and so on. And so doing studies in human volunteers is particularly powerful. And that's one of the projects that's really been taken flight over the last few years in FinnGen, largely leveraging about 10% of FinnGen individuals who are blood donors, who are coming back obviously regularly. And that provides an opportunity to identify individuals who carry interesting variants and obtain additional blood samples from them when they attend for their blood donor sessions. And also because of the setup in the blood donor system, it's been possible to collect quite complicated samples that need quite a deal of processing, for example, to do transcriptomics and immunophenotyping in peripheral blood cells. And as Masahiro told us this morning and updated us, this has proven to be incredibly valuable, not just as a way of building a resource that everybody can use, but for answering specific questions about how some of the variants that have been identified in FinnGen as associated with disease, how those actually impact those effects through impact on genes and on cell types and cellular programs. But in the remaining sort of 5 or 10 minutes, I really want to focus on this area of translational research because I do think that's where FinnGen has a particular edge. It is incredibly difficult and has proven difficult to get insights into longitudinal phenotypes, disease progression, which I mentioned previously, but also therapeutic response and so on. And in this corpus of data that's already been collected in FinnGen, I think we have enormous opportunities. No other biobank really has the combination of scale and longitudinal medication outcome data to address many of these problems. One of the ways of thinking about this is that we can use the longitudinal clinical data that's available in Finland and the existing biosamples and so on that have been collected and the opportunity to collect others to both get a window on the future, but also to look back in the past. So if you consider somebody who has a new diagnosis of IBD, for example, if they've got historical data in the clinical record, or if they've got historical biosamples that were collected 5 or 10 years ago, you've got an opportunity to understand what it is that may have led them towards disease. And then you can also follow those people up longitudinally, and with additional clinical data or biosamples, understand something about the processes that are related to progression and or therapeutic response. And there, of course, the huge effort of the biobanks over many years to collect and preserve biosamples is absolutely key. As Arno said, this has allowed us to start to ask what are otherwise very difficult questions, which we've maybe struggled to answer previously in many different disease areas about what are the factors that influence disease progression and what are the factors that may influence response to the therapeutic agents that we already have. I'll just give you a few examples of those and then say something about the future. So here's a nice example in the top panel, looking at people diagnosed with AMD, and then looking at the decline in visual acuity towards registration and blindness as a measure of the progression of AMD. And you probably can't read it in any detail, but it shows what actually we've seen in a couple of other data sets recently, which is although there are 2 big hits for AMD risk, one at CFH and one at ARMS2 or HTRA2, only the latter seems to be involved in disease progression. Another example here, recently published by Mary Pat and colleagues, looking again at AMD, looking at the region around CFH, which has been long known to be associated with AMD. There are some anti-complement therapies that are already used in the treatment of AMD, but the combination of the Finnish-specific genetic architecture in this region and the ability to recontact and collect biosamples has identified FRH5 as a causal factor and a potential new therapeutic target. And then in my final example, and really a window on the sorts of things we're going to want to do much more of, work from Andrea Garner, recently published in Nature Genetics, just demonstrating how you can use the real-world data from FinnGen and from other biobanks to emulate the data from clinical trials and just get an understanding, obviously, in a much more efficient and inexpensive way of what clinical trials might be useful and how you might want to design them. So this is really my penultimate slide. Just some thoughts, and I'm sure we're going to discuss this much more going forward, about where we might want to go next. FinnGen is an exemplar of effective public-private partnership that's already unlocking new discoveries in biology and medicine. But I'm sure there's more that we could do and that we should be doing. I think the first is around scaling recontact. I showed you some examples of how powerful that is, but we need to be able to do experimental and observational studies. And we increasingly will want to recruit people with specific genotypes or proteomic risk scores into clinical trials. So how can we make that happen at scale? How can we remove barriers so that we get ever more integration of effort across many stakeholders? The Finnish healthcare system is great, so many people are involved, but it is complex, and ensuring that all the pieces mesh together as effectively as possible is critical. We need to facilitate data access and make everything AI ready. Part of that is thinking about ways of having other ways of having trusted research environments in the Finnish space that could lower the barriers to pharma, integrating data across multiple biobanks, setting up agents, we're going to hear about that later, chatbots and so on to interrogate the data, and enabling research across data sets so that we get that international perspective. And then the final thing where I think there's a huge opportunity is around building a foundation model of health events across the life course, with FinnGen perhaps seen as the experimental arm of that Finnish health space. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later. So let me just finish there saying that FinnGen is a powerful resource for genetic discovery and replication. It's a powerful resource for mechanistic inference. It's a powerful resource for translational impact. There's so much more that can be done, and I certainly look forward to working with all of you to realize some of those opportunities. Thanks.
Many thanks, Arno and Mark. We actually now have time for questions. So if you have any questions on YouTube live chat, please don't hesitate to ask them there. And also, mics are circulating here, so those of you who will raise your hand first will get to ask your question. Don't be too shy. Okay, if nobody is asking at this point, I have a couple of questions myself. Arno, when you look back, what would you do differently? Many years of work, did you make some mistakes that you were later on thinking that, oh, right, we should have done this in another way?
Oh, yes. I think part of that is reflected in the arch that I was trying to build, that in the beginning you try to make your organization so that it definitely builds to the construction phase. But having flexibility to move it to what is really needed in the next phases. So maybe that transition could have been, we could have worked a little more on and avoid some stumblings.
Yeah. All right. Any questions at this point from the audience? I'm trying to see if there are any hands raised. Yeah, over here.
Thanks for a great presentation. I'm from Singapore, company Gero, and we are working on health data and genetics as well. And we are collaborating with UK Biobank. So my question is related to your longitudinal data. So do you have your follow-up backwards? So for example, when the person came to your study, can you track clinical history of these patients back to from the birth, for example, or for how long backward you can check health history for that person?
All the way till 1969, and then for cancer to 1950 something. So of course it depends a little bit on how to which specific aspect you want to track. But basically decades back.
Okay, so does it tracked by Finnish health system?
Yes, through the health registers that were initiated early on in the 50s and then late 60s and so.
Okay, and another question about, you say that you tracked about 2,000 diseases. Do you mean it's 2,000 because of this classification, ICD-10, or it's you specifically select some diseases?
Actually, there are many more granular diseases, but these are kind of disease entities, or we have built. This is a longer discussion. Maybe we take this offline and gets very technical.
Okay,
also, you can ask your colleague Max Lam, who is from Singapore here. He knows very well how that's done.
Okay,
wonderful.
okay,
that
thanks.
connection needs to be made. Are there any questions? We have time for one more question here. I don't see any hands. So I have a question for Mark. The collaboration model of FinnGen is very unique in many ways. So what are the pros and possible challenges of so many pharma companies working together? Are there?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, certainly pulling these consortia together can be a bit of a minefield, particularly if you've got multiple pharma companies. But I think we've been through this rodeo quite a few times now, and understand a little bit better how to do it. I think each consortium is different in its own way. I mean, one of the challenges, but also a strength of FinnGen is being that the data can't leave the sandbox and so on, and certainly the proliferation of different TREs that we each have to engage in different consortia can cause a lot of friction. But there we've really been helped in the case of Finland, and I know it's a model that Singapore has also adopted by having a core team of analysts to do a lot of the regular analysis, which otherwise 14 different pharma companies would all have to do those core analyses, which doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we've enormously benefited from that approach.
All right. Okay. So let's give a big hand to Mark and Arno. Thank you for the insights. And now we will actually move to the next part 2 of our program, Shaping the Future of Finnish Health Data. Earlier this year, Sitra began to explore what it would take for Finland to become a global leader in the use of health data. And 2 leading experts, Olli Kallioniemi and Kimmo Porkka, agreed to take on this task. And this part of the program, among other exciting talks, Kimmo and Olli will actually take the stage and talk about the results of their work, which is the preliminary vision of how health data could be harnessed more comprehensively in the years ahead. But before that, I'm very glad to invite Petri Lehto next. He's the Digital and Healthcare Project Lead at Sitra to give his introductory remarks at this stage. So welcome on stage, Petri.
No, many thanks, and thanks also for the insights we just heard. My name is Petri Lehto, yes, and I come from Sitra. And Sitra in Finland is the innovation fund. We try to help the Finnish actors in various ways to make the better future for Finland in general. It's a very societal aspect that we try to endeavor. Just a few kicking off introductory remarks from my behalf. Sitra has been helping the Finnish actors quite a lot when it comes to health data system. We have been helping different actors in establishing data pools here in Finland. We have been helping to establish the secondary legislation for using health data here in Finland and many other things. So our path has been very consistent and long in this. Collaboration with the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health has been very prominent in all this, and we have been very glad to do that. That has progressed now for some more than 10 years, and many things have been accomplished through that. And I think that we are all the Finnish actors are very happy to observe that we have Finland has become one of the kind of front runners when it comes to health data, how to use that in the secondary way and getting benefits out of that. We can see that in kind of being manifested through the FinnGen project itself. We can see that when you will hear about what kind of accomplishments we have made available in the last session today when we discuss the biobank system, biobank actors. But through the developing of the health data system here in Finland, we have also come to understand and notice that not everything works in an ideal way. We accomplish many things, like said, FinnGen, biobanking, getting many uses to healthcare itself, developing that. But we have understood that many more benefits could be received, gotten if we would take some further steps in developing the system. Research, development, innovation could benefit a lot, as would healthcare system itself. how to develop healthcare towards the future. Now, if we would take such an endeavor to develop the system further, we could take many different ways. We could go towards just to perhaps at one extreme to fine-tune the system in such a way that it would be a little bit easier to use health data than it is today. It's still very cumbersome in many respects, even though there is legislation improving work undergoing by the ministry at the moment, but still, it's quite bureaucratic and so forth. But the other extreme is very interesting itself, because that would kind of mean that we start to rethink some of the fundamentals of the system, kind of taking the system and its different parts apart and rethinking what we have. If we would wish to put the parts in different kind of order, make them work a little bit differently, perhaps develop the legislation behind the organization a little bit. What the system of that kind look like? And that, of course, is something which is much more ambitious. That, of course, would provide us with a system, healthcare, R&D&I, a system which would be more future-proof in such a way that we would be able to take advantage of the arising opportunities that are looming there in the background. Some of those are already here now, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence and what we can do with helping the healthcare system move towards prevention and prediction. Well, this is what was in discussions with the Ministry of Health last fall, when it was agreed that Sitra would kick off such a work which would investigate some of the fundamentals of the system and how to improve this in a bigger scale. And we were very glad that Professors Olli Kallioniemi and Kimmo Porkka accepted our invitation to do this job, to be brave enough to do that, and this is where we are today. So you will hear some of their thoughts, some of their preliminary findings towards the future system of health data in Finland. So let's see what you think about that in the discussions to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Petri Lehto. I can't wait to hear that, thinking about the fundamentals and how can we actually take advantage of all of the data that exists and what can we do with all of that. And now it's actually the time for 4 short presentations that all cover different components of the Finnish health data landscape. Each of these elements play a key role in enabling large-scale research and innovation. So please give a big applause to Tommi Nyrönen, Director of CSC, IT Center of Science, Professor Kimmo Porkka from the University of Helsinki, Andrea Ganna, Associate Professor at Institute for Molecular Medicine Finland and Helsinki Institute of Life Science, and Lauri Salmivalli, Partner at PwC, taking everybody the stage. And let's actually start from you, Tommi. You can take the stage and the rest of you can sit there. So go ahead. Thanks.
So thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to this event. So I'm bringing a bit more technical angle to the discussion. So I'm representing 3 different ongoing activities, and I try to bring you 4 points how the data that actually we're discussing about here could be managed. So I come from the CSC IT Center for Science. So this is a national infrastructure. We've been around for 50 years. So if you want to remember CSC from something, so we were the place where the Linux, the open source operating system, was spread to the world from the then innovative IT infrastructure. Of course, this was in the 90s. It's a long way back. But we've been in the path of making data open source. We've been enabling this in this society for 50 years already. So we have a long history of that. My role at CSC is to be responsible for the Finnish part of the European bioinformatics infrastructure, Elixir. So all the public data produced by public research, it needs to be managed and organized and served back to the community. So this is what Elixir is. and CSC is the Finnish node of the European infrastructure for biology. Lumi is a large investment that is taking place in Kajaani, and there's one maybe example that might be relevant for here. So we are managing with the European climate data research infrastructure how different predictions about the weather and the changes in the climate are done. So all this data is organized, piped next to Lumi in the Kajaani data center, analyzed, and then results returned back to the places where the data came from. So thinking like too simplistically, this is the thing we need here, I think, but it's not that easy. And that brings my second point. So this is who we are, but the second point is that we will participate in this health data ecosystem actively, that's for sure, because we have all these things ongoing already. But it's not everything is geared up to the health data management yet, for the reasons that we heard from Petri Lehto, for instance. So we need to include the data access management. We need to make sure that the data that is being given for the users is properly managed. The regulations tell us that. GDPR, ESDS, or the European Health Data Space, the upcoming AI Act. So all these kind of set the framework how a neutral ICT platform like CSC can work in collaboration with the experts who are in the field. So this is what we are looking at. So we will participate, but we need to work with you to understand what the requirements are for the data to become actionable so that we can go to the kinds of results that the major pharma can with their resources already achieve. So those are the two points for like a positive message. So we have an organization in Finland and we will participate. What I would like you to think about is where is the data now? Because where it is and who is authorizing access to it will impact how the IT infrastructure should be designed. So the data goes to the place where it can be used and then returned back to the places where it could be further processed. So we are a neutral player here. So we had nothing to do in the Linux core development, but we facilitated that this became like a resource in the society. And this is exactly what we want to do in the health data ecosystem as well. So we will participate. And the fourth and the final point is more about like what would be the practical first step, because this is a huge space. So what we are proposing is that we could work in closer collaboration with the current data controllers, data holders, like the biobanks. So if we can collaborate with the IT infrastructure that we have in Finland and the actual people who wrangle the data as a daily practice, like the biobanks. So if we can agree on this, how we gonna practically turn all this data management into services that can be used in the ecosystem, then I think that is a good way to start the collaboration. So that's just a proposal from me, and now you know the logos and how to reach us at CSC. So I thank you for your attention and hope that this will lead to some contacts. Thank you.
And now, next up, Kimmo Porkka will share insights into clinical data integration and interoperability. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So what I will present now shortly is our ideas on how the clinical data should be or could be organized within the Finnish health data space vision that Olli Kallionimi is going to talk about in detail in a minute. So for the clinical data, what we want it obviously to be very rich. We want it to be all the data that we generate when we treat the patients, and that is something that we call deep clinical data. And it should be stored in a national repository and in a very accessible way. And it should be integrated to the big research data that we generate from these patients, like FinnGen, ICANN cancer data. Obviously, this will also serve those big projects. And it should be easy to find for outsiders to find and locate what data is there. Very importantly, it would be very easy to get access to the data through one permit. And then it will be structured and harmonized already, and The idea being that it would be able to link to the outside world that has been discussed already a few times. We need to start to speak the same language, data language that everybody else is speaking. So why should we do this? There are many reasons, of course, but I mean, there's an urgent need for really up-to-date clinical data. And for example, we learned a lot from the COVID-19 pandemic, how difficult it was to share data, even within a couple of sites, let alone within the country, let alone Europe-wise or globally. It was really difficult and it didn't really work out. And that won't be the last time when we truly need to share data in a very rapid way. And there's an increasing need for regulatory purposes, for scientific purposes, for RDI purposes to have very up-to-date data readily available for those purposes. But the challenge obviously is that sharing patient-level data is challenging. And it's may become even more challenging in the future due to the legislation, but I think it's even more to the practical things that it doesn't make sense to move tera or petabytes of data daily around the world. It just doesn't make sense. So, and we can't do that. So we need to find other ways of sharing information, sharing data. That's one way is data federation, where you share the analytical code. And that way you have to use a common data model to truly do that. But the critical thing here is that at what level do you do the data harmonization then? Usually it is when you get the data, so at the utilization phase, you get a huge amount of data, and then you look at data, then you don't understand anything about it, and it takes 80–90% of the budget and time to figure out what the data contains, and that's crazy. And you have to do it every project, you have to do it again and again. I think also within the central warehouses, there's a lot of discussion now in Kela data that there was 200 million lab values extracted. It took maybe 2 or 3 years to do that. And well, I think that's also crazy. That should be already available for FinnGen. They shouldn't have to do this. So we need to start doing this at the production phase. So where we produce the data that needs to be harmonized at that level. Luckily, there's a lot of tools available to do that. We just need to agree on that. And even though many of us use commercial systems like Epic, there are already pipelines already today available that you can transfer that data easily and automatically to a more standard open source format like FHIR. And then you move that to a central warehouse where the quality control can be more easily done, maybe provided by CSC. And the technology is there, and then you go into the utilization phase. And this is sort of like the big picture, and we have quite a few plans already ongoing, especially by THL, how this should be arranged in the big picture. But that will take some time. So to do it more quickly, to get going relatively quickly, so we've started a project called FinnOp now 5–6 years ago, where we harmonized locally the data. And that's been done now for 4 university hospitals and THL registries. So we have a lot of patients already on this. The next step is to move that in a central repository and then use that for different purposes that we want to use clinical data for. And that should be ready. We can do this in a year. So by the end of next year, this could be up and running. And then we could use this as a central node for data federation project, for global federation project. And this is really the first phase that we thought that this could be implemented in a rapid way. And you can already, once that is up and running next year, so you can start developing models, like Andrea is going to tell you in a bit, to do that in a very robust and predictive way to truly provide value-based care. And I think maybe even more importantly, you can really truly utilize the different data sources that we have, public data sources, private data sources, company data sources. And I think that will truly bring scalable and global value to our efforts. So thanks.
Porkka. And next up, we will hear about the nationwide foundation model and how that could transform the healthcare in Finland. Welcome, Andrea.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm going to go directly straight to the point. So Finland will going to be the first country in the world to have a nationwide generative AI model for healthcare. And this is going to happen within 1 year. And I'm saying that because we already done it. We have run it in FinnGen, and we are now applying on nationwide data set. The models work pretty much like this. You have a sequence of input, can be EGFR value, chronic kidney disease, medication, or anything else, and is trained to predict your future trajectory. For example, if you get diabetes or MI. When you have these predicted future trajectories, you can then derive other type of information. For example, readmission rate, healthcare costs, and disease progression. We have seen this done at regional scale, even in EHR system bigger than Finland. For example, EPIC has just released a paper on 150 million patients that really showed that the scale is essential, but this model outperformed target-specific models. The thing, though, that we can do in Finland that is really unique and is going to place our first in the world is the nationwide coverage. It means we are not going to miss people. We are not going to leave certain group of the population behind that they do not have access to the healthcare. So this is going to happen in 1 year. Within 3 years, this model will include medical notes and retinal images. We've been working with Kanta to get all the text notes that is in Omakanta, possibly extract and attach to our existing data set that will be around 6 billion notes and 2.3 billion encounters. Effectively, we want to go beyond Finland because now in the European health data space, we've sort of unlocked the power of European data. As part of the Panersha consortium, we have started to put together partners across Europe that have also access to nationwide data. This is good, but it's also a warning for Finland that in the Nordic country, we are not the only one now that have access to the nationwide database. France, Croatia, Belgium have access to similar database and nationwide scale. We have asked these different partners to take their nationwide database and start to calculate some statistics. In total, we got back data for 84 million people. This is aggregate data. You can see the distribution of different first diagnoses, so ICD code, and medication 5-digit CTC code. You can appreciate France, how big it is. So their national SNDS database is around 63 million people. So Finland compared looks very small, but also Belgium has a very large national database of drug purchases. When you have this kind of national database, you can start to look if these data are consistent. This is a key question. Does the prescription pattern, for example, in Italy, look similar to the one that we see in Finland or in Sweden or in France? If you look at the correlation of the prescription rate across different drug categories, you see that it's actually not too bad. It's around 0.7, where you have very high similar prescription pattern in Finland and in Sweden, and a little bit lower when you look at Italy and Sweden, but there is actually a good consistency, showing that these data are integrable across Europe. Because we can have this European landscape, we can also go to very rare diseases. If we look at Cushing syndrome, for example, and looking there in Finland, we have around 151 cases in a 10-year follow-up period, and bringing together this country bring us to around 8,000 cases. So it means we can build AI model that generate also rare events, which one country alone is not able to see in enough scale. So what this nationwide generative AI model will allow scale-up application in trial emulation. We can generate basically digital twins, so sequence in the future and match other people based on their past sequence. We can do individualized risk assessment. We can think about delivery and deploying this model at the patient portal, for example, through Kanta API. And ideally, we want to recontact high-risk individual for trial enrollment, monitoring of deep omics, for example. So how do we go there? We first, as Kimmo has mentioned before, for the data we are working is just one extraction, right? But we need data that are constantly updated, that are constantly harmonized. So in a sense, we will need to have sort of an API linked to this data that the model constantly train in real life and in real time. This is sort of the goal. And second, we need to be able to spin off trials and proof of concept study that are prospective. And to do that, we need to be able to recontact individuals. Right now, under secondary data legislation, that's the way we get all this data. We cannot recontact people except if they have some sort of existing consent, which is only a minority of the population. So the real question is, how do we go beyond just the smaller things in a way that we can, of course, not force anyone, but send letter and inform people that they might be interested in participating in studies. And this is it. Thank you very much.
Exciting, really exciting work, and it will be interesting and wonderful to see how that kind of a foundation model works and how you plan to, for example, retrain it going forward. Now, next up, we have Lauri Salmivalli, who will be talking about a model for national coordination of clinical trials here in Finland. So, welcome, Lauri.
Yes, thank you. I'm adding the final piece in the puzzle. We've heard a lot today about things that we do in Finland are really great, but the problem is that they are quite scattered. They are distributed in different areas and in different institutions. And it applies to clinical trials as well. We've been helping Sitra and Ministry of Health this spring about developing an operating model for clinical trials and how we could get Finland back to the game in the international competition regarding clinical trials. And we have developed operating model which is based on different layers in the clinical trials environment. We wanted to avoid building a sort of ivory tower far from where the research is actually happening. But instead, we are trying to take into account the different levels. We know and appreciate that a lot of things are happening in the well-being county areas, especially in the university areas. And we are trying to take account into the university county areas, and we appreciate that there is a lot of things happening in terms of clinical trials, and we want to strengthen and sort of lift up the work that's done in the areas. But we need a coordinated single point of entry for different customers how to approach the clinical trials. And we did a lot of listening last spring about pharmaceutical companies, that what they are expecting from clinical trials and how they should be done. And what we heard is that we need a fast, predictable and reliable environment for accomplishing clinical trials. And that's what we've been trying to set up in this model. We want to be as agile and quick as possible. So what we are doing is that we are building this operating model in pieces, and we want to start as soon as possible, and we hope that we are seeing some advancement already this autumn. The reason why we should do the Finn trials is quite obvious. So what we are lacking at the moment is to have the sort of shared picture that how many trials there are in Finland at the moment, who is doing them, why we have rejected some of the trials and so on. So we need a coordinated view on what's happening. We need standardization as well. So we have different areas, they have different agreements, they have different interpretations on how the contracts should be made and so on. So we need a coordinated model. The potential for these clinical trials is huge. So we expect that the sort of trials organization can financially support itself, but the main thing is that we see that there is a huge potential in terms of national health and in terms of national economy as well. And that's something that we should develop is the sort of nationwide infrastructure for clinical trials to benefit all the well-being counties and patients eventually. And from the customer perspective, we can offer a coordinated single-stop shop for doing business with the clinical trials. So that's it.
Thanks to all of you. Tommi, Kimmo, Andrea, and Lauri. We actually have time for one quick question if there are any. If somebody would like to ask any questions at this point, we can have one question. If not, we will thank you for your contributions. And we'll invite the next speakers on stage so you can leave the stage. Many thanks. So these are great examples, kind of everyone taking a different angle to this one big topic. And we will now next move to the next natural step, which is the vision that ties all of these elements together. Now, Professor Olli Kallioinen will share the preliminary outlook on how Finland can leverage health data more comprehensively and position itself as a global leader in this field. So welcome, Olli.
Okay, thanks so much, and very good to see all of you here today. So what I will do today is first of all point out the fact that what I will tell you is not something that I do as a representative of University of Helsinki, but as a representative of Sitra. We've done these thoughts together with Kimmo Porkka and then the team of Petri Lehto, and we certainly hope that Sitra will put its weight on these ideas that we will be presenting to you today. But maybe the sort of a challenging, simple task is really how are we going to create a suggestion for the government on the future of health data in Finland and propose that as a solution together with Sitra to the ministry. And what the current stage is, which is actually making this event very sort of happening at the right moment, is that we mapped the situation over the past 6 months. It's been quite a learning exercise, and we're still learning every day. But we are in the final write-up phase soon. And now we are testing new concepts and new ideas in interactive workshops and stakeholder discussions, such as this today. So this is your opportunity to have an impact to also reflect on what are we going to say today. So one of the potential key deliveries is how can Finland create the first of its kind national coverage, EU EHDS compatible AI-era health data infrastructure and data analysis system that is realized via federated secure system. And I will tell you what this mouthful is all about in a short while. But we are not starting from scratch. So obviously there's a tremendous strength, as you have already seen, in Finland already. And these strengths can be divided into multiple different ecosystems. So there's a health data ecosystem, there's a tremendous compute ecosystem, healthcare research, development and innovation ecosystem, and the regulatory ecosystem. And I don't have time to go through this. Many of these are familiar to you, and maybe you've seen more than enough times, like the advantages from the FinnGen perspective as to why FinnGen is here. Also the compute ecosystem advantages, the tremendous variety of players in the healthcare research, development and innovation system, and then the regulatory system. But if I were to just point a couple, obviously we want to sort of start with the FinnGen strong base, but also the strong base that Kanta provides us. We also want to sort of make use of the compute capabilities, both the skills and human element and the hardware available in Finland. And then also on the regulatory side, the biobank and secondary consent and whatever new legislation will come. And also the one-stop shop that the national data access permit already provides. But overall, we are not limiting ourselves to the current legislation. There will need to be new legislation to make everything happen. But the point is that all of these components need to be brought together. So this is not helpful to bring elements and develop them together as we have done successfully in the past and have achieved great things. But now they have increasingly become siloed efforts. And this is obviously driven by the EHDS regulation, which is now on an EU level in effect already. And that's actually a legislation that should help us, not regulate us more than what we do nationally. And then there is the AI angle that basically is changing everything that happens in the research setting, but eventually also how healthcare will operate. So it is in this context that all of the things that we are trying to suggest here should be considered. So the very simple, broad scale in the sort of a national digital healthcare ecosystem, we would need to create a capability that is based on one integrated health data infrastructure. That doesn't mean that all the health data exists in one physical place, but it is part of one healthcare infrastructure that can then address a multitude of questions. And then compute capabilities and also analysis capabilities, research capabilities, and so forth that can plug into it and turn it into something useful. So, FinnGen is a great example in more ways than one. And I'm not going to repeat everything that has already been said about FinnGen in terms of what it represents and what it has accomplished. But there's quite a few lessons there, both in terms of an inspiration, but also in terms of what we would perhaps try to do better or try to do in a different way in the future. So it's obviously national, international ecosystem, the trusted research environment that is at the heart of everything. But I don't think that outside of the FinnGen community and outside of the geneticists and data scientists, people don't really fully understand what it actually means. And then it's international brand. I'll get back to that in a short while. But the main headline above everything is the Finnish health data space. And FinnGen is part of that health data space. That's the tall sort of a tower here, which represents the depth of data. So obviously there's tons of data in the FinnGen effort, but we also need to consider the coverage, how much of the population, and eventually we would like to and need to cover the entire population. And we have two approaches for this one that were already highlighted a little bit by Kimmo and Andrea. And I will just redo that with a little bit different words so that you might sort of get an idea of what we are sort of trying to achieve. And they will take the entire platform or the entire population and add additional layers of data on top of that, not necessarily suggesting that we do genomics on everybody, but get more and more in-depth data. And organize that all into one infrastructure for the future. So as Kimmo was alluding to already, there is an effort underway to put nationwide electronic health data records together and do it in a standardized, curated way that not everybody would need to sort of curate their own data sets in the future. And eventually also build it into something that would update itself fairly recently, not perhaps exactly real time, but close to real time. And then another effort which builds on the Andreas plan that is based on the registry coverage that already has all the population fully covered, such as through the Kanta registry, initially just the diagnosis codes and the simple events, but eventually building up more content in there, such as images and text and so forth. And obviously, to some extent, FinnGen for that smaller entity has already been able to do that. So one of the things that, what the question is then, what do you do when you have the infrastructure? Well, you can answer multiple healthcare questions with that single database if that is already curated, rather than everybody building their own data set for individual questions. It would need to be or you need to build multiple trusted research environments to host the data and bring the computation to the data. That is the principle of the federated computing systems. But then also think about the next-gen approaches, such as creating a foundational AI model for the next-gen applications. And this is obviously something that Andrea already pointed out, that we would and could have a Finnish-based population scale longitudinal multimodal health data foundational model that would be securely built together, and that could be fantastic. this is the picture of what it will look like. What you can do with that is obviously have the temporal dimension there. You could look at patient journeys, predict patient journeys in the future. You could also look at the evolution of healthcare and healthcare functions over time. And obviously query it in a multitude of ways, and I'm not going to have time to go through all the various options, and I don't think we even know what all the options would be. But for instance, chat with the healthcare, chat with the institution, chat with experts, and particularly chat with patients like me that have already been in the Finnish system in a virtual sense of the word, in an anonymous fashion, and then also model healthcare functions, simulate trials, and so forth. So as was pointed out already, we are not the only ones doing this type of work. This is from the EPIC paper that Andrea also referred to, but it's a very nice illustration of how you use the same language model principle that you are putting words together. In this case, we are putting patient data together over time and use that to predict the patient journeys and also predicting future risks and diseases that may be applicable towards predicting a healthcare. And this is obviously something that big tech is now doing, and they are doing it in a very big way. And therefore, what is always important is that we need to consider where is the edge in a Finnish side, and it's not going to be the size of the data. It is going to be the unique combination of the nationwide coverage and the decades-long data sets, the one-stop permit, and the supercomputing usage, the EU law, and so forth, but most of all, not just data, but how we make use of the data in terms of researchers and in terms of the future healthcare. So this is the suggestion that we are wondering how we should put it together. And then you ask, why has it not been done already? Well, this has already been brought forward that we have 5 medical faculties, 20 healthcare regions, 10 different biobanks, and they all have to contribute. And this, if you have not noticed, after every FinnGen publication, there is this disclosure of what all the permits are that had to be brought together to make FinnGen happen. And this is obviously something that comes from the legislation, but also from how we have made the system that we have today. So there's EU legislation, there's national legislation, but the most difficult layer is how this is interpreted locally by all the players. And if you just for the sake of argument, think about the contractual jungle that we have here, 5 times 20, 3 times 10 would be 1,100 different perturbations of agreements that would have to be made. And it's not just agreements, it's about changing data, it's changing money and charging each other and so forth. There's so many things in here. So, but FinnGen has done it. So I asked the AI that please explain us as to how Arno Palotti and his gang has made it happen and cut through the bureaucratic jungle and got this everything done. And this is Arno making his way through the jungle, and he seems to be still happy, but let's see how things go. So this is the labyrinth of today that we need to struggle with all the players that we have in the system. And clearly this can't go on if we want to be competitive in a global sense of the word and even repeat the success of the FinnGen in the future. So we suggest a new model, and this is my last points of today. And I'm not going to be doing this in the details because this is obviously much more complicated in real life, but this is a 1-1-1 model. So we have in an EHDS compatible format, 1 health data infrastructure, 1 national research development and innovation organization, and 1 permit authority. And it's between these 3 players that everything should be happening. The moment you engage everybody in the system, in the decisions and permits and so forth, it's going to fail. So you do need to make it simple. How do you make it so simple? First of all, before I get there, think about this as the 3 key players. There's the playing field, that's the infrastructure. The yellow is the team, that's the scientist, and the red is the referee. So this is a soccer game. There needs to be the data sources, and they will come from the healthcare registries and so forth. They will also come from the research, eventually also from patients directly. And then the outcome will be that all the academics will link to it, all the companies, public bodies, they all make use of this through the national research infrastructure. And obviously we will utilize in the center the trusted research environment or special processing environment as the EU lingo of this goes. So this National RDI Institute, what it would be, and again, please consider this as a suggestion. This is what we consider as the team, the one that plays and actually delivers at the end. So it should be integrating national expertise in the data science, in the biomedicine, and in the translational domain. We've been, and again, this is a joke, don't take this seriously. We've been considering this as FIM, the Finnish Institute of Modern Medicine, because this is really, we should be looking at this into the future. But this is really a national thing, should affiliate research and research projects across the country, and integrating also the health data, biobanking, and the clinical trials capabilities that you have heard today. They should all be under the same organization for things to actually flow fluently. And one site for the external collaborations and contracts. So this is the suggestion. So first of all, set up a curated, standardized, complete health repository, the National Health Data Infrastructure, and then the National Research and Development Innovation Institute, whatever it would be in the format, to allow everybody to be part of the same team working towards this and cutting the sort of a bureaucracy and the agreements that are needed to make this happen. So this is not just creating the next registry. This is really something that should go to the 2030s, and the principles invert everything. Compute comes to the data, projects comes to the data, researchers come to the data, and research have to join the national team for that to happen. And the data sits in a secure environment where it doesn't lead. So if I want to illustrate, this is the old saying that if the mountain can't come to Muhammad, Muhammad needs to come to the mountain. This is like Arno now trying, the next Arno maybe, trying to make their way through the jungle to reach to the mountain where the data is. But this is something that we want to make much easier. So this is the sort of a scientist joining the team, having the affiliation of the national team, bringing their ball, which is the project, with them to the data and then you play at the mountainside. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Many thank you, Olli. I'm sure there will be questions coming later on, so please take a seat. Now we will actually take a couple of commentaries at this point from two different perspectives. Now, warm welcome to Catherine Klinger, Distinguished Scientific Fellow, VP Genetics, Sanofi, and Santha Ramakrishnan, VP and Head of R&D Data Strategy and Governance, Bayer. You both will be sharing a reflection on the vision we've just heard, so welcome and take the stage. There you go.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting us, and it is really a pleasure to be here this afternoon and have the opportunity to share some of our experiences and some of our thoughts for the future. Santha and I have talked about this. We're going to tag team, and we've been asked to address some questions about the vision that just got presented, which, you know, take it for that this is a first blush at the vision and therefore a first set of responses to it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what our experiences with FinnGen have taught us about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that you heard. And Santha's going to come back afterwards and talk about the processes and the logistics and the reality of what it takes to make this whole system try to work. So let me preface my statement by saying my vision is very similar. It's one where we would have harmonized integrated data sets that spoke well to each other in a centralized location, where the systems would also, that ecosystem, the systems would be harmonized as well, and we'd have really all the tools we ever wanted as a one-button touch for all the analyses we ever wanted. Now, reality is going to fall quite short of that latter one for sure, but that would be, you know, my goal, my dream at the end of the day, thinking about how much hard work it has taken everyone at FinnGen to get to the great place that FinnGen has gotten to and to deliver the great results that it has done. So I will, kind of respond to kind of what do we think it's going to take based on our experience with FinnGen. And as a public-private partnership, I think FinnGen has been at the forefront of generating an engine to use genetic data, healthcare data, real-world data to identify genetic basis of disease. So some of the questions we were asked to address is what would it take for Finland to be the leader? I think in many cases it's been the leader, right? And that comes with some of its own challenges, as we'll talk about. Participating in FinnGen has been extremely rewarding, not just because of the quality of the science, which has been outstanding, and the new knowledge that we've generated, but because a lot of that knowledge has been actionable in terms of patient impact, as a pharma company, of bringing drugs to patients. So we have used all the FinnGen data for indication expansion, for indication selection, new target discovery. I think right now, in the last 2 years, there are 13 clinical programs going forward and 2 approvals that happened that would not have happened without the use of the FinnGen data. So really, really very rewarding in that regard. And, Mark was addressed earlier, what are the pharma needs? FinnGen largely addresses many of those pharma needs. The question is, how do we continue to go forward at scale? How do we go forward into the future into an AI-enabled world, as you've just heard about? So I'm also not going to go through all of the, what are the great things about FinnGen? You've heard those in many, many times. With all of the successes, there have been challenges. And, as one would expect. When you break new ground, you expect to come up with new technical difficulties, organizational difficulties, scientific difficulties. But some of them turned out to be more difficult to solve than we had expected. And that's sort of the reality check that you always wind up coming up to. It's great to have access to the various data sets, to the registries, to the real-world data, to the genetic data. But right now, they largely sit not in one harmonized ecosystem, and the permissions are not in one harmonized ecosystem, but rather fragmented. And so there's an enormous amount of work that goes on every time you have a new initiative, right? And there's often significant effort required to clean the data, to find the data, to account for missing data, and then to harmonize the data and integrate it. You heard from Mark that if every biobank, if every pharma company did that individually, this would be insanity. So having it centralized would leverage to an even greater degree where we've already come from. So mining the EHR at scale, by the way, has been a very challenging task, particularly for free text or other unstructured data. So what is the impact? That's what we've been asked. If this is the vision, what's the impact of not achieving the vision? It has slowed progress and sometimes prevented the undertaking of specific initiatives. And as we've begun to look at longitudinal studies, at drug response, non-response, that's a very high bar. When we knew that when we started those that expanding FinnGen to looking at longitudinal progression and disease mechanism, not just looking at disease risk. So the vision outlined here would definitely and positively, I believe, impact the public-private partnership and the collaboration, which is one of the things we've been asked. Does the vision help move Finland towards being a leadership? Absolutely. The combination of the rich longitudinal EHR data, the health data, and omics has great value for deep phenotyping and genetic research relevant to drug development. Together with solving the unstructured EHR data in a computational environment that supports sophisticated analyses if delivered at scale, will position Finland and FinnGen for AI in the future and to remain a leader in the field. So creating an integrated, harmonized ecospace, solving the practical challenges that Olli outlined, I think are critical for the vision. We were asked how soon should that happen? I would say as soon as you've got mature plans to start to build on, that would be yesterday. And if not yesterday, then let's make it tomorrow. Thanks.
Wonderful. Many thanks to you, Catherine Klinger, and it will be wonderful now to hear what stood out most out of the vision for you. Santha Ramakrishnan, take the stage.
Thank you for the privilege of being here on my very first trip to Finland, to be speaking in front of an august audience here. And I think this is what makes Finland special, right? There's talent par excellence in Finland that we are bringing to problems that are intractable. And that's what makes Finland special. And if I know she's keeping very good time there, and a few comments on the vision. The vision is fantastic, laudable. Thank you for putting it so nicely, and especially at that 1-1-1 model, Olio, very nicely done. If I had to add just one thing, and Arno gave me the privilege of being as open and as candid as I could be, and as we could be. One thing, I think the vision, is it just for research, or is it also for the patient community? Do we have to give back to Finland's patients in some form? How would that be how would you achieve that goal as part of this one vision? I think we'd have to take that into account. And if, just as an example, I was doing some research to see if patient-reported outcomes are part of this data set collection that we have. And if we needed that to be part of this collection, then the patients have to be part of our equation, or part of our ecosystem, is the one observation I had. Then traditionally, I dissect any problem in terms of people, process, data, and technology. And people, we've covered in this thing, process. What I liked about Kimmo's presentation of FinTrials, it resonates with the ambition of FinGenius, the one-stop shop idea, the one-stop shop for clinical trials, the one-stop shop for biobanks. What we learned from the FinnGen experience is that while there's a one-stop shop, there is the harmonization that's required, not so much of data, but of processes, right? The sample transfer processes, sample handling processes, when I have so many biobanks to do this, would, for the sake of all those invested in this ecosystem, pharma and others, how would we build transparency into the operations? And that kind of harmonization of operations, processes, et cetera, would be very welcome as we think through how we deliver on this vision. Another aspect of processes is regulations, and everyone has alluded to a lot of regulations, but I would put the regulations before we think of anything else. Because most often, regulations have really put the brakes on anything we may want to do. Technology is no longer the showstopper. Never. It was before, many years past, but no longer. And today we have anything and everything we can do with data, technology, all of that. So bringing the regulations ahead, and where can we do this better than in a small but powerful community and country like Finland, right? Where there are fewer players. And I'm saying fewer because I'm also thinking of how I do this back in India, and that I see how it's so difficult to do. So when you have somewhat of a harmonized ecosystem here in Finland, it would be easier to achieve some of those regulations and make that possible, make practical regulations possible. Yes, it has to be regulated, but how can we be pragmatic about those regulations? So people, process, data, and technology. A lot said, and a lot has been done too, as FinnGen has shown. There is more to do, of course. But the one word of caution I would have on behalf of all of us is not putting the technology before the problem, right? What are the business outcomes we want, and what are the people outcomes, the country outcomes that we want before we bring in the technology into the discussion? What I loved about what you put earlier in your thing was data was common everywhere. And as someone who leads the data organization at Bayer, which is very proud to be part of the Finland ecosystem, we make everyone think data first. Process and data first, outcomes process data first before you think of technology. And with that, I think I have 15 more seconds. Thank you.
Many thanks, Santha Ramakrishnan. And actually, at this point, I will invite Kimmo Porkka also on stage, because there will be maybe a possibility now for Olli and Kimmo to take commentaries and maybe to reflect on the points that were just raised, for example, regarding the transparency, and also how do we make sure that the entire ecosystem is under the mountain, not just the team of researchers. If we just look at the image that you just showed, was it Olli? So would you like to say a couple of words about these talks before we open for questions on the audience, and try to think about all of those questions that you would now like to raise? We will have time for that as well. So Go ahead.
I'll just very quickly say that it's absolutely fantastic, and thank you all the comments, and we really value how you view this from the outside, because this, what we plan, is an ambitious thing that should carry weight beyond the borders of Finland as well. But exactly like you also put, that this is not something that we do only for the research purposes. After 10 years of FinnGen and after 50 years of registry research, should really make use of the data more dynamically in the patient's care, and helping that part as well. So absolutely, it is helping the patient care as well. And like Päivi has said many times in the past, that you try to solve these things in Finland, and then you make them into products that could be sort of commercialized globally.
Yeah, I also think thanks for the comments. They were really, really good. So we were discussing about it quite a bit. We sort of almost intentionally left the patient part a bit out, because it's a very huge area. But I mean, of course, I'm a clinical doctor, so seeing a bit of patients still. I mean, the field is changing quite a bit, so patients are becoming much more autonomous, and that is going to increase. And this will be a resource, of course, for that. And that, of course, that's sort of like in the heart of everything that we do, is that we think it that way.
All right, so now we will open for questions. Are there any in this room? I will actually start from one which we received from the YouTube live stream. So the question is: global collaborations would be needed much more. What steps are needed to navigate or comply with international data privacy and sharing laws? So now we have been talking mostly about the kind of the national and Europe-wide, but when we talk about on the global scale, how do we take that into account?
You want me to say something?
Maybe.
Anyone can comment.
We haven't coordinated any of these things. So first of all, I think the FinnGen example is a good example of how this has been done already, and how companies can utilize multiple resources. But these things can also sort of link together in a more dynamic way during the construction, that they wouldn't be just in. And that's what Andrea was showing already on the European scale, that one of the needs why we have to have a new system is to be compatible with European level and global efforts of data sharing, federated data analysis capabilities, and so forth. So it's not just to build our own thing, which obviously we emphasize today more than anything, but also the international reach.
And the idea of personalized medicine means, of course, that we are going to smaller and smaller patient groups, meaning that nobody has enough of data. And it's absolutely crucial that we can network in a global sense.
Yeah. Another question from the audience: what would be the carrot for well-being service counties to be part of the Finnish health data space?
Well, I think it serves also, because then for the individual sites, if you think about the organ, you can think of it in many ways. So think about the organization, think about the doctors and researchers in the organization. For the latter, I think it's a big benefit, because you get access to much larger data sets in a very high quality. But also for the individual organizations, they can use this data for benchmarking, and also for this type of knowledge-based guidance for their own systems. So I mean, this is something that absolutely is going to benefit everybody.
Maybe the point as well that obviously the well-being counties, and I just say healthcare regions for the international community to understand what we are talking about. The healthcare regions already do that within their own domains, but then they tend to solve these things in various ways, which creates an incompatible national theme. So making this happen together is obviously the key point of this suggestion. We are not interfering with anybody's. I forgot actually to say that once you affiliate with this hypothetical national team, you still play with your local team back home. So this does not change that. This is only for the national level coordination. And obviously, the more we can do that, I think the more powerful it will be for all the players as well, to achieve something bigger.
Yes. All right. There is a. Go ahead, Kimmo, and then we will take the question. You were saying something.
You need the carrot. That's obvious. Yeah. But you might need a bit of a stick as well.
Too. All right. We'll remember that. So there is one question coming from there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
From
I mean,
Andrea.
the vision is fantastic, but I want to play the devil's advocate for a second. I mean, you're proposing basically a massive database of all the data of the citizen with an AI system integrated into it. That's exactly what some part of the population will, think it's not okay. So I'm thinking probably that part of the population is not very represented in this room, but I think it's what will be the measure we will have in place to avoid a sort of a PR disaster when we do something like that.
Yeah, I think one thing is that the key idea here is even though you bring the data into the same technical ecosystem, the data still stays separate. It stays within the ownership of the data holders. And the advantage of this that once you get to all the approvals, the one approval that you need, so then you can, in minutes, you can then make the datasets for the sandboxes, and you can start working in a couple of days instead of many months or years.
Well, it's interesting that you play devil's advocate
exactly.
to yourself as well, because you were the one that was suggesting it. But sort of taking the other angle to it, that sort of it obviously needs this. Well, let me rephrase that. You have the epic example that people do this internationally in any case. Our patients could be part of such international commercially led initiatives, or we could decide to do it nationally under privacy protection and appropriate things and control who gets access to it. This is, after all, much easier and sort of reasonable to suggest. But obviously, we need the CSC and all the expertise in the world to cover that you don't get to the personal data out of it. Mm-hmm. And I know that, like my example, I was hesitating to put the patients like me. I just think that is such a wonderful idea to have the opportunity to discuss with your previous people who have gone through the system, but at the same time, it opens all these privacy things. So we have not had time to delve today into the ELSI aspects, but that obviously is a big part of everything.
And I think that's even a warning example, the EPIC story that you showed and Olli showed, that's a commercial entity that's going to own that type of data, which would be very, very beneficial for the society. So that can't happen. So we need to build this in a network, in an open source network, and we can do that if we work together. That won't work, I don't think.
All right, thanks. Santa, you had a comment.
I think what Andrea said just now, I think that's a word of caution, just to learn some lessons from how pharma did it in the past. We would say data integration, and the first thing that we cut a check for is bring all this data into this one lake and everyone shall have access. That is passé. It's a thing of the past. It's no longer that we are bringing in data into one place and things like that. We are letting business happen locally in the place it happens, yet provide the access. And that is the way to go. And speaking of well-being, the carrot for the well-being, right? A lot of this now seems to be reactionary, but there's the potential for it to move the dialogue to the preventive side. So as and when people understand, as and well practitioners, providers see the data, get familiar with the AI models that Andreas talked about, physicians will be equipped to understand patients even from the early signs and would be able to intervene before they became a case for critical care. So that is the carrot, right? And there is the economics of prevention versus cure, all of that. That's a separate dialogue. But I think as a Nordic country where prevention probably has a better emphasis, has an emphasis over disease, and where that seems to be foremost, that is the carrot, right? To understand who your patients are. Can I get them even ahead of time? And that is something that we see happening in some of the hospital settings in the US, where these AI models are being deployed to recognize patients even as they walk in the door. And there is so much benefit from doing those kinds of things. And one well-being district learning from the other well-being district will never be, is always a good thing.
Thank you, Santa. Really well said. There is a question over there in the audience.
Oh, well, hello. This is not actually a question, but more like a comment. At this point, I thank you for the marvelous talks about the solutions in technology and data management, but I would like us now, or remember also the quality of data. I come from a hospital, I represent a person who is feeding in the data from a cancer patient into the electronic patient data systems that we have. I have been doing real-world data studies on our data lake. You two commentators said two very important things. Katarina said data is messy. That is really true. The data that we have in our data lakes is messy. It needs a lot of curation before it can be put into some meaningful outcomes. And you said don't put technology before outcomes. And you have to have the data, and you have to know the parameters that you need for the outcomes, and you have to put them into the data, and then you can use the technology to get a good research. And I hope that in this meeting we have representatives from health, the welfare counties, IT persons. Do we? Do we have persons who here are in charge of doing the electronic patient health record system? Because we have been struggling with so little improvements. For example, at the moment you still do not have an unambiguous parameter to show whether a cancer has relapsed. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So this is just focus on the data also, and the welfare counties are really important.
Thank you. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so that's exactly one of the key points, and that's exactly why you need to bring the harmonization and the standardization in the way you produce the data, not just in the way you record the data, but even after that. And luckily, there's a lot of tooling now available, new tooling like AI-based tooling that you can extract also from text-based documents quite reliably, put that in a standardized and structured format. But that is a key. But I think that's a solvable problem.
But that is the key of the model, that ideally will be done only once, and not that everybody cleans up the data repeatedly over and over again. That's where this model is meant to have an impact.
Thank you. Thank you. There is time for maybe one more question over here. Can we get the mic? Thanks. Oh, actually, he was first. I'm sorry. Let's take the first and the second. Maybe we have time for another question then. There, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much. Eero Rissanen from Eurocenter Finland. First of all, thank you and applause for great presentations and great vision. Really pioneering work. I have two comments more than questions. We've been talking quite a lot about the data that exist in the healthcare system. I would also like to highlight the role of research data in the data space, as you did. There was the slot in the slides as well. So that is also one of the strengths we have in Finland. We have really high quality research, and that was the big tower of FinnGen in the 3-level system, the level 1 FinnGen tower. So how could we make sure that we could have other domains represented as well, that have data that really enriches the data that we already have? Like, for example, what I represent in neuroscience, there's a wealth of advanced imaging data, neuropsychological data, and so on. And there's a lot of harmonization also there within that needs to be done so that it can be impactfully linked with all the other registries. So that's something that I would like to highlight, an opportunity and also something to work on. And the other comment, I would also like to highlight that all of this continuing work, of course, would need to go hand in hand with the ongoing renewal of the research legislation that is being led by the STM at the moment. So there is a lot of synergy that these both can achieve. Thank you.
Wonderful, thanks. A quick comment on that.
So absolutely right. There is legislative needs to be happening, and then the comment on the research data, fully agree on that. And that's one of the parts that we are trying to say, that also in the sensitive data space, we could start building fair data sets that can be reused and sort of complemented with others and many people working on the same data sets, such as has happened with FinnGen, but has not typically been possible in the system otherwise.
Thanks. There was one more question in the audience.
Yeah,
There you go.
Samuel Mylderkangas, Switchpoint Bio. So very exciting and accelerating vision. And I think so my question is that this is a group of really analytical scientific thinkers. And I think we kind of quite quickly went from here's the vision to here's how to operationalize it. And here's the databases and structures. I think kind of would like to hear your thoughts on the bit higher up, how do you think kind of this will change the culture and the ways we work, and how do we kind of go on implementing this kind of big transformation, and what needs to change on the culture and kind of a...
Can I make a comment there? I think one of the most important things is to actually deliver. So there's a transparency, so to be open about the initiative, to keep the public and the other stakeholders involved, at least informed, but also to have incremental stages where there's concrete return and progress that happens, right? Because particularly, at least in parts of the world, the AI hype is so large right now, and are there AI hallucinations, blah, 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 that people want to see the reality and that the reality works. And the same thing is true with physicians, at least in the United States. The time that they have per patient is so constrained these days that the idea that a tool will improve their ability to provide patient care and not be yet one more thing detracting from the holistic care, I think is a message that we will need to be able to demonstrate, not just articulate.
Yeah.
But maybe just to add on to that the biggest reason to make or not make this happen, or to make this happen, is the mindset, and that's really needs to sort of be aligned, because we all have our egoistic goals that often come and cross each other's, be it at the individual level or be it at the university level, organization level, whatever.
All right, I think this is a good point to conclude this discussion, and maybe we can continue this discussion actually during the coffee break that we will soon begin. But let's now give a big thank you to all of our presentations and comments, and also thank you for all of the questions. We will continue.
Is what you need.
We will continue 2:55 sharp in this room, so be here at that time. Thank you so much for the first part of the event. It's very handy that we have the tables here, so you can place your coffee mugs on the table if you didn't finish your coffee during the break. All right, let's now kick off the next part of the event. We will now focus on exploring the current biomedical research collaboration opportunities that Finland offers for early discovery. To real-world evidence. Now, to kick us off, we will look at how FinGenius service and Finnish biobanks co-create value with researchers in biomedical research collaborations. And so Finnish Biobank Cooperative's Director of Research and Services, Johanna Mäkelä, will start, followed by FinGenius Manager Meri Lähteenmäki. So let's now invite Johanna on stage with applause. Welcome.
Yes, great. It's great to be here, and good afternoon to everyone. We have heard a great vision of what we should do in the future, but maybe we can take a small step back and focus on what we are currently doing. So basically, what we are currently doing at biobanks and at FINBB, and while utilizing our great FinGenius service. So we have heard today many things. What are the key advantages of Finland? Why Finland? And as you can see, there are lots of them. Majority of these we have already heard today. In my presentation, I will focus on biobank network and of course the public-private collaboration that we have been conducting. In addition, I will also show you real-life examples so that you will actually be able to see what works in real life currently, because then it's also easier to plan for the future once you already see what is currently being conducted. So, we have the FinGenius service, and it's the gateway to Finnish biobanks and biomedical research. It offers the digital, but as well as personal services to access biobank samples and data and study participants. And of course, it offers the targeted study participant finding for clinical studies. Then FinGenius is also a partner of Health Hub Finland EDI network, that is the partner in creating digital healthcare solutions. And indeed, FinGenius is one of these digital healthcare solutions provided by that network. And then we have the FinGenius ecosystem, and that offers data and expert services in RVE and RVD research. And actually you will hear later today examples on RVE and RVD research presented by the FinGenius ecosystem companies, and you will also hear a panel discussion followed by that. So, next I would like to show you how the service is currently working. So as you can see, it's an international service and it's also a growing service. So far we have conducted over 500 research projects. All of you should at least know one biobank research project. If you don't know, you haven't been paying any attention. So FinnGen is of course the biggest and largest biobank project that we currently have. But there are also many other kinds of projects being conducted, and the researchers are utilizing our services. We have over 200 registered users from all over the world, actually from 45 different countries currently. And the number of scientific publications, it's well over 1,000. We don't actually know even the detailed number because the scientists usually, they don't know if they publish the results, even though they would be using the biobank samples and the data. So this is a great example that the biobanks samples and data, they are being used for research purposes all the time. So something is working and something we have done right because there have been some scientific findings that have been made. And we are, of course, very proud to say that FinGenius hosts the world's largest hospital biobank collection with over 14 million of samples currently. And of course, the number is growing all the time. So this is the current situation. We have the national scalable FinGenius service. It's the first in class in Europe, but it may also be the first in class in the world. So we offer access to samples, data, and study participants in all the Finnish public biobanks. So in this is the one-stop shop for biobanks. But of course, there are many other research purposes where it's actually not a one-stop shop. It's not operating that fully as it is for the biobank research. But maybe there's something what we could learn from this kind of service approach that we have built here. In addition to samples and data and study participants, the most important thing actually is the services, the expertise that can be related to these. So we can offer the services in the biobank studies, we can offer the RVE, RVD services in the FinGenius ecosystem, or then the digital healthcare solution as part of the Health Hub Finland EDI. And I would like to see this kind of very overview approach also in other studies. So we think that usually the simple solutions are the best, even if the idea is complex, as we saw in the video. So it's sort of like a really complex field where we are working, but the solution can be really simple. What we then currently have to offer, and this is maybe something that you have already seen quite many times, but if one of you is not that familiar with the biobanks, this is what we currently have to offer. So as mentioned, we have the 14 million of samples available, but we can also organize on-demand collection. And thanks to FinnGen, these operations are ongoing and we are practicing all the time longitudinal sample collection at the biobanks, so that we would have more than one sample from the patient, more than one time point. Then you can link longitudinal clinical data to the samples. We have the refined deep data, which usually means that it has been generated from the samples. So the FinnGen genotype data is a good example of this kind of refined deep data that has been generated as part of a research project. And the uniqueness and the great advantage, of course, is that once the data has been returned to the biobanks, you can actually apply to use it for other research purposes. So in the future, of course, we also hope that these kind of collaborations are still enabled. Then we have the study participants. So you can actually recontact them based on genotype, based on phenotype, conduct different kind of studies, and of course, collect patient-reported outcomes. But this all looks very nice, but I would actually like to show you a few examples on how this is actually working, just to give you an idea what kind of studies we can currently conduct. We already have heard that there are many hurdles and many obstacles. Some things are really hard currently, but then there are also some things that are working quite well as we speak. The next example comes really near. So you have already heard a lot of FinnGen. So my first example comes from a FinnGen project. It's a surprise to Arno as well. So here you can see an example of a FinnGen spin-off study. So the FinnGen study results, they were used as a basis to select candidates for a more detailed spin-off study. So a group of researchers, they were going through the FinnGen results and decided that there is a group of individuals that they want to have more samples and have more data from. They made a sample access request in the FinGenius, applied for more detailed samples and more detailed data through the FinGenius service. Biobanks delivered the samples and the data. These were then analyzed and resulted in a nice result that, for example, revealed a therapeutic downregulation of FHR5. This publication came out last June, and you can see the details of the publication there if you are interested in reading more. But this is a nice example of a collaboration project. How many parties were collaborating to make this project happen? You can also see a QR code there, and that means that this data has been returned to the biobanks. So if you actually want to conduct your own research by utilizing this data, you can just click on the QR code and apply access to that data. So that was the first example, but then we also have some other ones. So the next one comes from a company you probably may have heard of, so Roche. Here we provided digitalized H&E slides. So this was done on the field of oncology. So we provided digitalized H&E slides from diagnostic samples from oncological patients and longitudinal clinical data. This data and samples were then used to develop algorithms and to improve the diagnostic workflow, and of course, ultimately, even the patient outcomes. What is really important is always to listen to the customers, to the researchers. What do they think about our services? And here we have a statement from Maris, who was leading this project at the time. And his statement was that the most important thing for them, of course, was that there was a process in place. So that was the most important thing. And that they were able to access the entire country with just one application and one agreement. So that was of key relevance to them. But something that actually surprised us a bit was also that even though Finland was among the smallest countries that participated in this initiative, we actually ended up being the biggest. And that was because the data quality was such good that there were no dropouts. So basically, the data was found from each of these patients and could be delivered to this company. So that resulted in less dropouts and of course, made us bigger than they would have estimated, basically, based on our population size. And I think this is a key learning for all of us. Then another type of example, this is actually a UK-based startup company, and they wanted to find new drug targets and improve their understanding on dementia. And here we provided them pseudonymized genotype data and phenotype data for their analysis. To this client, speed was everything. So they needed to happen. The agreements had to be made very quickly. The access had to happen very fast. And we were able to deliver them everything they needed in that timeline, in very tight timeline that they needed. So in addition to quality, the time and speed is of course really important for the companies. Then my final example comes from France. And actually, after my and Meri's presentation, you will also hear of one of our collaborators from France, from Ovkin. But we have also conducted research with other French-based companies. And here we provided plasma samples along with the longitudinal clinical data to this company called Agent. And they have developed a blood test to detect how the healthy individuals, how they are transforming to different onsets or different stages of Alzheimer's disease. And our plasma samples and longitudinal data was used to study that effect, study the longitudinal aspect of that. To this company, what was of key relevance was the possibility to be able to actually follow the individual from the time when they were healthy to the time when the disease was onset. And they said that this was a really rare chance for them to be able to follow up through the individual life cycle. Similarly, for example, as you see in FinnGen, where you see the longitudinality of the data is actually giving you death. So in this case as well. This study is still ongoing, and you can see the website there where you can find more details if needed. And now I will pass on the mic to my colleague Meri, who will tell you how you can actually also get your hands on the FinGenius service.
Thank you so much, Johanna. And so let's do this together, and you can yourselves experience how easy it is to use FinGenius. Please take your phones, scan the QR code, and go to fingenius.fi. On the front page, you'll see two buttons, Explore Now and Register. And we will start with Explore Now, because there are actually a number of things that you can do in FinGenius already before registering to the service. So you can scroll through the biobank collections, and you can also see the high level, the aggregate level availability for your research. But you will be first taken to the FinGenius cohorts. There are more than 60 cohorts available in FinGenius. Those are the ready-made collections in the Finnish public biobanks, and they can be based on many things. You can see that there are cohorts like the complement factor H cohort that is based on the refined deep data that has returned to the biobanks. There are also larger population-based study-focused cohorts, and cohorts can be based also on specific diseases or sample types. For example, there is a cohort for the neurological cerebrospinal fluid samples and related controls. So it's really easy to filter for what you need. And here I've, for instance, filtered just for the word rare to see what type of rare disease cohorts, rare disease variants can be found in these collections. And you can see that we actually have a number of those already, and there's more to come. So this is also to prove that FinGenius is evolving all the time, and we're also listening carefully the feedback from the researchers and what are your needs. Then, in FinGenius, there's also a catalog. And this is based on the high-level ICD-10 codes, and it covers the liquid samples. I've used here a very simple case. So if you're a researcher who wants to find, let's say, plasma samples from multiple sclerosis patients, you can just choose the ICD-10 code for multiple sclerosis, and then see that there are more than 3,000 plasma samples from unique patients available. And importantly, you can see how many of them have the genotyping data available and can be connected with the sample, and also how many of these individuals can be recontacted for further studies. So this is really useful information to plan and to sketch your study smarter. But then, when you actually want to conduct the research, that's the point when you at latest need to register to the FinGenius service and submit a feasibility request. And that's also very simple to do. So basically, you can see it's literally 3 clicks away, and then there's a guided fill-in to provide the information about what you need. A simple feasibility is free of charge, and you can expect to get the responses within a couple of weeks. And of course, the best thing is, like Johanna mentioned, with the single request, you can cover all the public Finnish biobanks. So this is in a nutshell how to get started. But even though FinGenius is a digital service, the key thing is that there are always us, the people behind it, serving you and supporting you throughout the process. So please don't hesitate to stay in touch at any point. We are happy to help. And with this, Johanna and I would like to thank, and we would like to especially thank the Finnish biobanks, as it's a special year for them, 10 years of Finnish biobank excellence behind us. And there are some interesting anniversary seminars coming up, so we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Many thanks, Johanna and Meri. Wow, that's really impressive. No wonder your name is FinGenius. I understand that. Hey, there is time for one question, if there are any questions in the audience. Simplicity and usability really is the key to start things, to make things happen, right? So my question to you is, like, what is the future of the service? What does it look like?
Well, I think that there are many things that we like to improve. Of course, one thing is that we would still like to hear more about the researchers, what they want to do, how they want to develop the services. We also do know biobanks have been now working for 10 years. There are some things where we also need to improve in that field, even though quite many things are already working well. But there is room for making things smarter, more efficiently. And especially, for example, what Arna has mentioned already. So some things are working very well, and then there are other things that we need to tackle. But of course, the main thing for us is as well that we want to stay tuned with all these next steps coming up. For example, that the vision that we saw today. So we hope that FinGenius will be part of that vision.
Wonderful. And as you heard the vision today, in your perspective, what is kind of the most challenging aspect of it when you look at what you are doing yourselves at FinGenius?
Yeah, I guess it starts from that there are so many players in the field. So we first have to get everyone on the same team. That is the first thing. Then we start to maybe building step by step, putting up the processes that are needed. I can say that while this has been a terrific journey with the biobanks, of course it hasn't always been easy. And I can see that there will be similar challenges when building up this kind of national network of different players working for the same team. But maybe we can learn something from the learnings that we have and from the learnings that FinnGen has and all the other parties involved.
Wonderful. Let's now thank Johanna and Meri. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will then move to the industry researchers' perspective. Now we have next up Alexandra Skieping, Senior Partnerships Manager, Northern Europe at Okin, who will share about Okin's key partnership with the Finnish Biobank Cooperative, the future in agentic AI, and Finnish Biobank Cooperative's role in this exciting journey. So welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and I'd like to thank the organisers, and in particular Johanna and Meri for inviting me here to talk and showcase our excellent partnership with FINBB. So just a little bit about Okin. Okin is an agentic AI company on a mission to explore complex biology, to speed up and scale research for the creation of new treatments for patients. So we're differentiated by our focus on improving our fundamental understanding of biology through data and AI. So we have unparalleled access to multimodal data from our large network of world-class centers. We have cutting-edge AI to quantify biology with our predictive models that we've developed over the last 9 years. And we have pioneering agentic AI, so our AI agents can transform actionable biomarkers into pipeline value for pharma or researchers. Oh, sorry, I have a bit more on this. So we have a strong R&D foundation. So we have a team of 350 people. We have publications in leading journals like Nature, and we have over 60 global academic institutions for access to thousands of data sets. We've partnered with over half of international pharmaceutical companies, and we have 4 strategic alliances you can see here. So now I'd like to touch on the strategic partnership that we've developed with FINBB over the last few years. So we started discussions in early 2023 with Tom and Johanna, And then in May 2024, we signed a strategic 5-year partnership. And from that partnership, we developed our first project in inflammatory bowel disease, which was delivered in July 2024. And then we went on to discuss the second project in breast cancer, which was delivered in June 2025. And building on our first project in IBD, we've developed a pilot for a new multi-omic data generation. And this is what we're currently discussing with FINBB and how we can scale that data generation, and also our future partnership in agentic AI. So any new data that is generated from this project or any future projects will be shared back to FINBB in the biobanks to be used for future research. And this could be internally or externally with their partners. So this, we hope, will be a valuable asset for them in terms of data commercialization. And we would operate in the same way with any of our data partners. So going back to the first project that we worked on together, so inflammatory bowel disease is characterized by a highly diverse pathology. And a significant challenge in treating IBD is that many advanced therapies, such as anti-TNF biologics, experience primary or secondary loss of response, affecting as many as 30 to 50% of patients. Therefore, our objective with this project is to better characterize these patients at the molecular level, using the definition of endotyping and studying their trajectories. So this will be based on the use of data on the left side. So we've got omics, clinical, lab, and histology data. And with the partners we worked on for this project, we have over 1,000 patients with multimodal information, and FINBB contributed about 300 of those. So in particular, we aim to develop a predictive model for IBD patients to identify those most likely to respond to biotherapies, and to have a line of research to improve risk stratification. So it's hoped this research will lead to the discovery of new biomarkers for IBD and to develop a better understanding of the disease mechanisms. So what makes Oaken different when it comes to this type of project? So we're using multimodal data rather than just real-world data. And we can work with multiple different data modalities rather than just one. So this is what we want to bring to the next phase of development as a company. So exploring large amounts of multimodal data and applying effective AI tools are key challenges for data-intensive drug discovery. To overcome these barriers, Oaken has developed Oaken-K, an agentic AI copilot using large language model interface for users to ask questions of the data on the platform. So a user can access AI tools within Oaken-K to query data to generate results, tables, and graphs integrated with scientific knowledge from the published literature. So examples might include multimodal biomarker exploration or evaluation of clinical relevance of biomarkers. And there's 2 tiers to the platform at the moment. We have K-Navigator, which is free and open to all academics, and it holds curated public data sets and articles on PubMed. And then we have K-Pro, which is a subscription model for academics or for pharma, and this will be launched in October this year. And this will hold proprietary data sets from our centers. So this is the Oaken-K operating system. So it's powered by our distributed world-class patient network. And having differentiated data is crucial to building state-of-the-art AI. So once we've identified a data cohort, we can then apply our AI to deliver value. So this is delivered across various layers. So first we have the representation layer. Here we apply our foundation models to map patients' genes, drugs, and diseases to common representations. And from there, we quantify these representations into hundreds of AI biomarkers. And finally, we apply the AI biomarkers to our discovery agents to deliver value to researchers. For instance, patient stratification, inclusion-exclusion criteria, and other clinical trial design tools. So the AI tools deployed by Oaken-K build on the models which Oaken have been developing over the last 9 years and provide a new way to make them more accessible to researchers. So the IT platform upon which Oaken-K operates is an established GDPR-compliant, ISO-certified, cloud-based trusted research environment into which curated data is ingested and securely held. So I'm just going to go through a short offline demo of how the platform might look on your desktop and how you could use it to answer or to explore a key research question. So in this case, what would be the best indication for a Nectin-4 antibody drug conjugate? So you can ask it K in natural language, and you don't need any experience in coding. So here it shows you the thought process, and it analyzes the biomedical literature from PubMed and multimodal data from a number of databases. And then it synthesizes its findings, citing specific studies here with their PubMed ID, and it layers in analysis from Mosaic, which is our multi-omic dataset for cancer patients. K highlights bladder cancer as the top validated indication, backed by FDA approval of a Nectin-4 ADC, and showing high expression in patients from the Mosaic dataset. It also points to ovarian and breast cancer as promising indications. So it can also generate data visualizations, which would typically require bioinformatic expertise. And here, this chart shows Nectin-4 expression across cancer types drawn from bulk RNA sequencing data from Mosaic. So with the new prompt here, you can see at the bottom, it can produce a single-cell RNA sequencing plot to dissect the data further. So a single-cell RNA sequencing plot is also interactive. See here. We can explore each cell type as well as patient-specific information. And then with a final prompt, K can generate spatial transcriptomic plots for 2 patients from the Mosaic dataset, revealing Nectin-4 expression and cell type distribution within the tumor microenvironment. So this is a multimodal literature-grounded and spatially resolved analysis. So in seconds, K has turned a complex question into actionable insight. So if you want to have a go for yourself, you can sign up for the K Navigator, the free version, and the QR code will take you straight to the website. Or you can contact me for more information or to arrange a one-to-one demo. So while state-of-the-art LLMs now excel on math and logic tasks, they don't perform as well with biological reasoning. So OpenZero is our first step towards bridging this gap on tasks that can accelerate drug discovery. In our paper published last week, we show that by fine-tuning open-sourced LLMs using reinforcement learning on uniquely curated biological datasets, small models can outperform much larger commercial models on complex, specialized biological tasks. So in this graph, you can see the red. The key is a bit small, but you can see the red bars are OpenZero and the blue are the commercial models. And for most of the tasks assigned, the accuracy is higher for OpenZero. So our next step is to create Open1, a next-generation model built on rich proprietary data, reasoning data, and moving towards interactive agentic AI for biology. So it's important to note that OpenK is fueled by our distributed multimodal patient data from our network, and having access to broad data to capture disease and patient heterogeneity is crucial to building quality generalizable models. So we're in active communication with over 60 of the best academic centers worldwide, and from that we're associated with around 840 hospitals and pathology labs. So examples include Charité, Gustave Roussy, King's College London, Erlangen, and obviously FINBB, just to name a few. All of these centers we have worked with in the past to supply our data requirements, and have all been driven by scientific research questions. We have a footprint in both the EU and North America. So we work very closely with our centers to make sure that the data we are providing is AI-ready, clean, and curated. And as with all our centers, we share that highly curated data sets back to them, along with any new multi-omic data that we might have generated. This is a valuable asset which they can use for future research or commercialization activities. So OpenK also provides access to 19 expertly curated and integrated public data sets and 26 million articles on PubMed. So here I just want to talk about 3 projects that we are working on in the multi-omic data generation space. So the first, which is half available, is Mosaic, and is the world's largest spatial multi-omics dataset in oncology. We have AI-ready spatial data for over 2,000 patients in 9 cancer indications and 6 data modalities. The next project is MIDAS, and this we want to develop something similar, but a multimodal data atlas in immunology and inflammation. And this will be the first atlas in I&I to support optimal patient stratification and speed up treatment discovery. And the third project, which is planned for the future and we're just mapping at the moment, is called MINDS, and this will be in Alzheimer's neuroscience. So I just want to dive a little bit deeper into a couple of these. So the first is Mosaic, a global initiative led by Oaken to create the world's largest spatial omics and multimodal data set in oncology. Mosaic will integrate data from 5,000 patients, and as I said, we've got over 2,000 already, making it the largest spatial omics data set created. The 5,000 patients will come from 9 cancer indications, so non-small cell lung cancer, ovarian, bladder, mesothelioma, glioblastoma, breast, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, head and neck, and pancreas. And then we'll have 6 data modalities will be covered for each therapeutic area. So we've got spatial transcriptomics, single-cell RNA sequencing, whole exome sequencing, bulk RNA sequencing, and digitized H&E and clinical data from the electronic record. So to do this, to achieve this, we've worked with 5 unique partners. And so we have Charité, Gustave Roussy, CHUV, Erlangen, and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center in the US. So we've all worked together on this data set to further biological discovery in cancer. So the next data set we're working on is called MIDAS, as I mentioned, and this is the project that we've worked with FINBB on, and they've been helping us with our data generation pipeline. And so we're starting with the I&I indications in gastrointestinal and within that IBD to start with. And then we're hoping to look at lung, skin, and systemic diseases in the future. So the indication-specific modalities that we're looking for are longitudinal real-world data, so EHR and lab results, and digitized H&E. And then the samples that FINBB and the biobanks are providing, we are carrying out the data generation. So we will do bulk RNA DNA sequencing, single-cell RNA sequencing, spatial transcriptomics, epigenomics, and proteomics. So here I want to really highlight the power of our partnership with FINBB. So they've been a founding partner in securing the data generation pipeline for this project. And they're a key strategic partner for us. They're highly responsive, and their processes are very fast and streamlined, providing impressive services for us. And as mentioned by Johanna, that's really important as a small company. They're extremely flexible to our changing demands and needs, which happen quite a lot. And they also have outstanding quality of data and samples, which is imperative for our multi-omic data generation. So the cooperative that FINBB operate enables seamless access to a network of 8 biobanks. And this means a really amazing scale and breadth of samples available in many different disease areas, which gives us the critical mass we need to work with for multiple projects. So I say it's a transformative setup, with FINBB providing exceptional service and the biobanks providing premium samples and data. So we will share back all the multi-omic data that we generate, helping FINBB and the biobanks in maturing their data collections and giving them a unique set of data in IBD, which we hope will be of great benefit to their partners and academics. So if you're interested in learning more about any of our multimodal databases, please do get in touch and come and find me after the session. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to FINBB. They've been a pivotal partner in helping us in drug discovery and agentic AI, and I'm looking forward to continuing our partnership. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra. We actually now have time for a question or two. Are there any questions in the audience? I'm just thinking, as we were talking about agents and agentic AI so much, what's your vision for the future of agentic AI at Oaken?
Am I still here? So I'm hoping that we'll be able to allow researchers to come in and use the AI tools that we have developed in-house on the proprietary data sets that we have available through the Oaken K version. For the free version, we want academics to come use the platform and be able to interrogate the public data sets. In the future, we hope that we might be able to bring your own data, so you could come and you could use our tools to interrogate your own data in a confidential space.
Yeah, how does it, have you compared your Gen AI chatbot to the state-of-the-art commercial big providers? How do you compare to their Just the general ChatGPTs or others?
So I mean, our objective is to go a little bit deep dive into the biology, so exploring biological research rather than, I guess, just general whatever's out there in the internet.
Exactly.
And that's what we hope with bringing the proprietary data sets as well, and also our the multi-omic data generation databases will also build on that.
Yeah. And then one more question, like, what are the kind of when you talked a lot about partnerships and the importance of the partnerships, because otherwise nothing would happen. You will need to bring different actors together. What are the key criteria that you consider when you select your partners?
Well, I say that FINBB are an excellent example. So centres who are collaborative can think in a slightly different way about data access. We work with a lot of institutes and hospitals, but also biobanks. So it's kind of thinking outside of the box. How can we work together? And something that might not have been, in precedence before. How can we access the data in a new way?
Wonderful. Thank you, Alexander. Unless there are any other questions in the audience, let's now thank you.
Thank you very much.
And move on in our program. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to invite Medafcon's Senior Scientific Advisor Riikka Mattila on the stage. She will share a real-world case in non-small cell lung cancer, demonstrating how Finnish EHR data can be transformed into predictive insights using machine learning. So welcome, Riikka. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. I hope you're all convinced by now by the previous speakers that Finnish health data is exceptional, and it truly is. But I'm sure you're all convinced also that, well, having data can be great fun. It's not really enough. But the real question is, can we produce meaningful insights from the data to support pharma, to support clinicians, to support taxpayers? In my short speech today, I will present to you one example where we used machine learning to predict risk in patients with lung cancer. So my name is Riikka Mattila. I come from a company called Medafcon. We are a small Nordic CRO consulting company, and we specialize in making these meaningful insights from Nordic health data. This project started as a collaboration between Medafcon and 3 clinical experts who treat the lung cancer patients in their everyday clinics. Together, we designed a study to predict overall survival in patients with non-small cell lung cancer. The data that we used for this particular study was from one of the Finnish data lakes, so electronic health record data from a large health area. What we did was we designed a random forest prediction model to predict the survival in these patients. The nice thing about using Finnish data lakes is that the data is really deep and really granular. So we get all kinds of very basic data like age and sex and diagnosis and so on, but we also get deep pathological data. So we get histology, we get PDL, which is very important for lung cancer. We get all treatment data. So every time the patient is hooked up to an IV, we have a record of that. We have the prescriptions, the surgeries, everything. We also have then genetic data, so all of the tests that have been performed during the treatment of the patients. Also very important for lung cancer. A lot of the data is structural, but as you can maybe predict, a lot of it is not structural. Some of the variables are quite simple, like PDL1. That's easy to extract from the pathology text. It's just single number. Some of them are more complex, like the smoking status. The way that the Finnish doctors at least express whether a person is a smoker or an ex-smoker or a never smoker is wide. And for this, we actually had to develop another machine learning model, a natural language processing model, to recognize the smoking status of the patients. With this, we were actually able to recover the smoking status for 98% of the patients. I will not bore you with the details of the model. I will go directly to the results. So we found, a bit surprisingly, that ECOG performance status was the most important variable for these patients. And we were also able to repeat this result in a larger cohort of more than 1,000 NSCLC patients. Here on the left upper, these are Kaplan-Meier curves for overall survival. And on the left upper panel, you see how nicely the Kaplan-Meier curves separate with the ECOG performance status. And some other factors that were identified was the plasma C-reactive protein. That was also published before to be an important factor in predicting survival. Now, overall survival is, of course, a very simple outcome to measure, but this could be done for quite a few things. So we could, for example, predict which patients use the most healthcare resources. We could use these things to predict, to help us with trial designs and also trial emulations and other trial supporting things. We could also predict guideline adherence or whatever comes to your mind. So to conclude, the great Finnish health data is not just for looking back at how the patients did in the past, but also to give us a direction to go to for the future. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. We have time for one question at this point. Are there any in the audience? If I don't see any hands, I actually have one. What kind of companies approach you when they want to collaborate?
Mostly we do pharma, so it's pharma companies.
Yeah, and what are they looking for from the collaborations, especially?
A lot of different things. Yeah. So there's a lot of basic need for basic epidemiology of the patients to support HTAs, but also for trial support, so external control arms, with target trial emulations and so on. So a lot of variety in what is needed. Also how their drugs are, of course, being doing in the clinics every day.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Reikka Mattila. And I can actually take the clicker. Thanks. And then next up, I am glad to invite CEO Tero Ylisaukkoja from MedEngine, who will give a case example in myasthenia gravis, highlighting how pan-Nordic collaboration can deliver valuable insights. So let's give applause.
Thank you. So, few thoughts on pan-Nordic studies and using our myasthenia gravis study as an example. This is actually a figure we have shown multiple times over 2 years in meetings like this, and it basically shows the need for real-world data across products life cycle. And in the light green, you can see how it was in the past. And in the darker green, you can see that there has started to be more and more need for real-world data in different phases of the product. And clearly, the majority of the need has been centered around the launch period to support market access and commercialization activities. But what has happened during the recent years is that there has been more and more need for real-world data to support R&D. So basically, we build different types of natural history studies to help companies to develop their clinical development programs. We can use this data to support patient recruitment to the trials, as well as building external and virtual control arms to the trials. So that's how it looks at the moment, but the key question is from where you can find regulatory-grade real-world data. And that basically means data that is highly granular, top quality, and well documented. And I think everyone in this room after today would say it's Finland, but I would say it's probably more broadly also the Nordic countries. So basically all of these countries have possibility to build these kind of a large population based cohorts with extensive longitudinal follow-up. All the countries also have fairly advanced data infrastructures, which allow us to access more detailed clinical data. And the countries also have pretty similar data content, which means that it's possible to combine and analyze this data together. And that's why we are quite commonly able to provide answers to the questions that are probably not able to be answered from anywhere else in the world. I would say Finland is in many ways leading the way, and especially access to the electronic health record level data through hospital data lakes has been very important for us to be able to attract international pharma companies to work with us. At Medensin, we've been building our Nordic operations for approximately 5 years now, and currently most of the projects that we have combine data from more than one country. And based on our experiences, these are kind of a very practical things to consider when setting up a Nordic study. So first of all, you need local team members, local people to be able to work with the local language, with the clinical experts, regulatory authorities, and so forth. And of course, it is important not to have to outsource any of the activities. Then it's of course important to understand data sources, study permit practices and regulations in each country. And there are certain country-specific qualifications you need to comply with. For example, in Denmark, you need to be an authorized partner of Statistics Denmark. So in the myasthenia gravis case, we basically collected data on all the patients with the diagnosis of myasthenia gravis from years 2000 to 2020. And this was done in Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, and resulted in approximately 9,000 patients with MG. And to our knowledge, this is currently the largest cohort of MG patients in the world. And we analyzed several epidemiological, health economic, and treatment-related outcomes, and that resulted in several publications. But as always in these projects, it's not about the publications, but the value from these projects come from how you use the data and evidence to support R&D, market access, treatment development, and then better patient outcomes in the end. But that's it. Thank you.
Many thanks. Many thanks. Are there any questions at this point? Yes, there is one hand, the second last floor.
Hi, Tero. Jenni Vuola, I'm an independent consultant. I'm just curious, since you've been working in the Nordic countries, can you comment anything about pricing in the different countries for getting permits and data? So is there some kind of clear differences between the Nordic countries in that perspective?
In pricing, yes. So based on our experience, actually, Finland starts to be the highest priced country at the moment regarding the data. And especially when we go to the data lakes and want to have this kind of electronic health record level data, that starts to be pretty high priced in a way that compared to other countries. I would say when we are working with national registries and so forth, then it's pretty similarly priced. But I would say in certain cases the data costs are relatively high in Finland compared to the other countries at the moment. But I would also say that it hasn't become the kind of a major obstacle for the clients to work in Finland so far.
Thank you, Tero Ylisaukoja. And now we will move ahead. We'll continue in the area of real-world evidence and take a panel discussion. What does Finland offer for real-world evidence research? Now, this panel will be facilitated by Susanna Flaherty, Healthcare Director Finland from IQVIA. So welcome, Susanna, and all of the panelists, please take the stage.
Great. Well, first I would like to welcome warmly the panelists to the discussions on what real-world evidence research and what Finland can offer to that one. And I think this panel and this discussion is coming actually very nicely on a nice kind of spot on this agenda, as we have heard questions on how do we make use of the data. So I believe that is one of our discussion topic on how do we use currently, and also some future perspectives will be shared. And yes, bringing a patient in a center, I really like that one. I think that is very important, and I think this team can demonstrate on how do we do that. I encourage to bring that in all the communications and the outcomes, because that is certainly for the whole healthcare very important topic. And excitedly today we have heard of very many innovative research activities that are happening, and also how the health data space is evolving. Agentic AI deployment in top of that I think it's giving a lot of opportunities for the future. You are all actors in this field, you're experts, and we are all parts, like the previous presenters, part of the FinGenius ecosystem. It's a network ecosystem where we are having different representatives, and some are users more. But just to start with, I think it will be very good for the audience as well to understand your role and position. So if you could shortly introduce yourself and just give your perspective on this, and if I may ask Maija to start.
Yes, and thank you, Susanna. My name is Maija Wolf. I'm from Novartis, and first of all, thank you for the invitation to join the panel. So Novartis is a Swiss-based innovative medicines company with very strong focus on research and development. My perspectives originate from my role in our dedicated Nordic evidence generation team, where we work across Nordic countries and together with our local country organizations in various real-world evidence efforts. And in Finland, we have several ongoing and concluded studies, and we typically collaborate with different stakeholders, healthcare professionals, healthcare organizations, and expert organizations in these efforts. And the main goal is that we create evidence that supports patient care. And we also want to make sure that also in Finland, our innovative treatment solutions are available to the right patient at the right time. So that was my short introduction. Thank you again, Susanna.
Thank you. Tuira.
Hello, my name is Tuira Prami. I'm a pharmacoepidemiologist and a PhD in clinical pharmacology, and I come from Oriola, which is a stock-listed company. We provide versatile advisory services along with real-world evidence. And here I talk from the real-world evidence team perspective. We are providing CRO services.
Great, thank you. Matthias.
Yes, hello, my name is Matthias Lilja. I'm a statistician working at Quantify Research, who is a health economic and outcome research consultancy, specializing in real-world evidence with a lot of presence in the Nordic countries and of course Finland. So my perspective today will be on Finland as part of the wider Nordic region. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaisa.
Yes, hello. My name is Kaisa Unkila, and I'm representing Neurocenter Finland and Brain Research Network here. So Neurocenter Finland is, we are 7 universities and 5 well-being counties, and we connect different kind of neuroscience expertise across research, care, and in industry. And our mission is brain health, and we want to address global burden of neurological and mental disorders through research, and data is the key for all the new diagnostics and treatments. So my perspective here is that we want to integrate real-world evidence to support research and new treatments and diagnostics.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kaisa and Tuomo.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind invitation. My name is Tuomo Pentikäinen. I'm CEO, one of the founders of Veilot.ai, and we are a privacy-enhancing technologies company spin-out from FIM, and 15 people currently working in Helsinki and Copenhagen. And I think it has been super inspiring presentations today, and it's about rapid, smooth access to as high quality of data as possible, and hopefully with relatively small cost, both in terms of money and time. And long story short, I very strongly believe that in order to do that in a privacy-wise compliant way, we actually need technologies or methods like anonymization, synthetic data, and then also very rigorous understanding of the privacy-related risks. And that's exactly what we are doing in Veilot.ai, mainly for pharma companies, medtech companies, but also for leading hospitals and universities.
Very good. Thank you all. If I may ask, Tuomo, you to continue, just would like to, we had a few use cases there, but just to bring also to the audience to more understanding on examples of different projects that you're currently doing and how the data is utilized. So we had the questions on having the data in use, and yes, would like to hear just short feedback.
Okay, yeah, well, love to say that our typical use cases are like generating data for pharma, like for external control arms, or for taking legacy data for use and cope with pretty strict informed consents. But actually, I would like to give another example, which is related to the garbage in, garbage out. And much of the data is actually coming from the electronic health records. And you would be amazed to know how little data, synthesized or just mock-up data, is used actually to develop, test those systems before they are taken into use. And we see the result when they are taken into use. It's pretty complicated. And now we are dealing with some cases where we are actually taking the anonymized and synthetic data taken from the actual patient data in massive scale so that the electronic health records can be made better.
Very good. So some underutilization as well of the data, I believe, on that. Guys, you have.
Sorry, what was the question? Do I?
Yes, some use case example that you could.
In our research portfolio, we have a great example, great project led by Professor Eino Solje and Johanna Krüger, and this project is in neurodegenerative diseases, and they have very, very nicely combined patient data from two different hospitals, Kuopio and Oulu University hospitals, with national registry data and including Statistics Finland. And this project is carried out together with pharma industry. So thanks for the funding, because otherwise it would have not been possible. And the project has analyzed comorbidities, medication use, and social demographic factors, and it's going to change the paradigm how we understand neurodegenerative diseases and how we can in future detect them much earlier, and this is going to induce changes in healthcare.
Very important and concrete example on putting the patient in center. Great, thank you, Matthias.
Yes, so I wanted to highlight an ongoing project. It's a pan-Nordic project, including Finland, Sweden, and Denmark, where we look at the risk of MS and malignancy following an EBV infection. And I think the real novelty here is the span of the data. We have more than 40 years of follow-up, which really allows us to sort of study the very young, early cases of EBV and what happens 30, 40 years from that time point. And also I think one of the biggest strengths with the Finnish data in this case is also the availability of the national primary care registry, Avohilmo, which provides an opportunity to study also the less severe cases, which the other countries doesn't really do on the same scale.
Very good. Thank you, Matthias. Ture.
My example is about a large nationwide cohort study. This is something we are actively working with now and publishing about. A study sponsored by Takeda. And it includes all ADHD people in Finland. And we have 4 non-ADHD controls for them all. And this is a large cohort, and it includes not only health data, but also criminal data, education data, and socioeconomic data, for example. Linking different types of data is possible in Finland, and we can use the unique IDs that all the citizens have to link data from different sources. And one element relevant to mention is that in Finland there is also this primary care data available nationwide, and the cohort data and our study database includes that too.
Great example, very today's topic on ADHD. Great, thank you. Maija.
Okay, so one concrete example.
Yes, please.
Yes, so I tried to summarize a collaborative study that Novartis has conducted together with Siun Sote, that's the North Karelian Wellbeing Service County, and then ESIOR. And this was a study that was a retrospective study, so utilizing existing data at Siun Sote region. And this is a nice example because it also highlights what we can do to support targeted evidence-based allocation of resources and also taking the preventive angle to the decision-making. So in this particular study, patients who had experienced an acute cardiac event were divided into 5 different risk categories based on their likelihood of developing a new event within the next 5 years. So this risk was calculated based on a specific smart reach algorithm and using the patient's baseline data available in the electronic health records. Also, the treatment-related holistic social and healthcare costs were examined during a 5-year follow-up period to get an association between the risk of the recurrent event and the treatment-related costs. And without going into too much details, the study provides an estimate on the impact of lowering the risk factors in the different risk groups, both in terms of lowering the risk of secondary event, but also in terms of cost savings to the Wellbeing Services County. So I think this is a very important topic, how we can really use the data. Cardiovascular diseases are the leading cause of death in Finland, and they have a significant burden on both the patients but also to the society. So this is one very concrete example, and this study was published last year in the European Heart Journal Open.
Great, thank you very much for sharing. Good example on linkage opportunities as well, like many Nordic countries are having. If I may continue with you, Maija, some of the question that is out often there is that how is the country selected for a global company, or where do we do the studies? And the clinical trials are one, but in this space we are really talking about the real-world evidence studies, and of course the real-world data is in the center of that. Do you have any perspectives that you could share on what are the different factors for the decision maker on selecting the research country?
So from an affiliate perspective, I would say very shortly, it's about access to relevant, representative, high quality data within a reasonable timeline. So I would say that is in short what we are looking for. On a global level, of course, there are different determinants. We need to have enough statistical power. We need to have the novelty. We need to have the R&D angle to it. Those are the parametrics that we're looking for.
Yes, so speed is something that we can take at an action point and, and work. And as we hear, that is one of the important elements for selecting the country. Yes, I would like to take a little bit more deeper on the quality aspect and also ask the other panelists about your views. What does the data quality mean for you? And in comparison as well, you're all using data as well, or many of you are using data from other countries as well. Is there anything that you could also follow up on or give a bit more content on that data quality and the Finnish data comparison to maybe some other country aspect? Tuira, you're looking at me that you could be the next one.
Yes, please. Well, if I continue with the ADHD example, the study was initiated by the Takeda Finland, and then the cooperation expanded, and we are also working with their European office, and we are now about to submit the 5th manuscript about this cohort. And again, we recently heard that the global office had noticed that, oh, they are actively publishing about ADHD real-world evidence for Finland. And also, after the first publications, I've been contacted by academic groups from different countries, from the UK, from Sweden, etc. So when the data is already available and we have proven that we are able to analyze and complete the project in a way, or at least complete one manuscript after another, then the data becomes even more interesting. So it's very time-consuming to first get the data, handle it, manage it, blah, blah, blah. There is a lot of work. And when it's refined so that the study database is in place so that we are able to give like faster answers, then it becomes even more interesting.
So expansion of the protocol as such. Yes, very good accent.
Yeah, exactly. It's not always the point to start from the point zero, but continue with the existing work, and it's very then saving time and so on.
Yeah, was there any comment about the data quality aspect on that project? Do you, or for yourself?
Well, we haven't published too much about the crime data still, so they are actually waiting for that.
Yeah.
So in these really large projects, it's not the first publication that will tell everything.
Yeah.
So like even us, the researcher in this team, we are still expecting to see more. But of course, linking very different type of not only health data, and they are all nationwide, originating from nationwide sources. It's a nice quality.
Very good. Yes, I'm still trying to dig about the data quality aspect. We are hearing that the medicine agencies, for example, are very demanding, and they want to have a high trust on the data in order to assure on outcomes and the important decisions are made for patient care. So for sure we need to be ensured as well. Do you have any other aspect about the comparison, the Finnish data to any other country comments, specifically on data quality? Yes, Tom.
I might comment a bit from the regulatory point of view. And as we possibly all know, there are super important regulations like EHDS and the AI Act, and they all are basically, if you read them carefully, actually forcing us to do some modifications to the data. And obviously, when you modify the data, then it is going to have some impact on the quality and utility and fidelity and what not. And I think Finland is now followed up pretty carefully because we have the FinData experience, and I would maybe give a big praise to the FinData. They are really European best practice. They have done good work when it comes to the privacy-preserving part, like definition of anonymization and that kind of things. And I think that the following next steps will be related to how actually we are defining the data quality part, because we really need to keep that discussion ongoing, because otherwise it may happen that there will be too strict rules from the privacy point of view, and obviously that is not what we want to, because then we are losing pretty much the AI game in the whole Europe, not only Finland or Nordics.
Very good points. And yes,
Susanna,
yeah.
We are all from Finland, so it's difficult to say. But I want to add, it's the best. You know,
Yeah, okay,
the
okay,
quality is
great.
the best you can get.
Yeah, I have a
Matthias has
great example of
Yes.
quality. So, and I think this quality relies on curated registers. And in Finland, we have example MS registry that has been developed together by healthcare professionals, patient and companies. Stellar Q, Markku was present here in audience, but just left. But maybe Eero could comment on this register, because it contains data on disease progression and treatment and outcomes, and it's ready to use data for the research and healthcare planning. So do you want to comment, Eero?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Disease-specific registries, they are certainly something where the data
and
quality
in
is.
neurodegeneration, there are development underway in other conditions as well. So this is really important.
I can also, if there is time, as actually a non-Finnish panelist here,
Yes.
I can also actually highlight the work on the Finn registry. The Finn registry, which I think is we talked a little bit about the sort of the fragmentation of the data, the need to curate and that sort of thing. But I think the Finn registry is a really good example. So what it is actually essentially is a collection of a lot of different registries containing everyone alive in Finland at 2010 and their first-degree relatives. And it's a ready-made data set that we have utilized via FinData, so you can get really quick access, and there is a lot of information. It's very enriched, and the sort of the data management that you have to go from raw data to a final results, they are really shortened down using this registry compared to other Nordic data sets.
Thank you for mentioning that, Matthias, because that's answering my next question on, do you see any underutilized opportunities currently? And that could be one.
I think so, yeah.
Any other examples for anyone? Where do you see that the data is already there, and it's in a good quality, curated or available in some time? Maybe the time part is something we need to still work on more in Finland. But do you see any underutilized opportunity with the river data? What could we do more?
Maybe something, and I was super happy to see it in the vision slides that Olli Kallionimi showed regarding the whole kind of the environment, including the clinical trials there. So because I think that we could better maybe even use our current health data opportunities in the planning and in the feasibility phase of clinical trials. We need to boost or kind of attract more clinical trials to our country, and I think there is still some potential not used yet.
Very good. River data could be an important part, more even important part that it is currently.
And maybe, sorry, now I just remembered one thing I wanted to say is the register-based RCTs. Maybe there is also unused potential, because if we think about Nordic countries, we see a lot of RCTs, so register-based randomized controlled trials being initiated in Denmark and Sweden, whereas Finland and Norway are lagging behind very much. So maybe that's also something we could look into, how we can use our registries in the trial setting.
another action point is taken. Yes, Tuomo, very shortly.
Just very short. If I see unused potential, I see 10,000 exabytes of unused potential. And that is about the amount of sensitive real-world data that is now in the world. And if you compare that to the amount of data that was used to training of ChatGPT-4, for instance, it is 192 million times that data. And that data is growing 36% per year. And according to Deloitte or World Economic Forum, 3% of that data is used. 97% is used for the primary purpose and only for once. So that's the scale of the revolution of AI. We don't really understand it yet.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to go to the last question, and we don't have too much time anymore, but this is very important. And I would like to get your insights. So what are the paths for international collaboration? It is important. We want to do the more research collaborations and given opportunities also for many other countries to develop and innovate in this field. What is the best path for you, Maija?
I'm looking through Nordic lenses from my role, so I think tightening and increasing that collaboration also from the data opportunity-wise would be important. And I think there are efforts ongoing by the Nordic Council of Ministries, the Valo project, for example, combining and looking for solutions to do pan-Nordic real-world evidence studies as well. So I think that's really important. Also thinking about how we can attract more R&D investments from the international industry to our region. We shouldn't just look how we can develop Finland, but how we can develop the Nordic countries together. Maybe my other point would be that we need to make sure that the data remains representative. And that means from the perspective from where we are looking is that we need to make sure that our patients are getting the latest treatments. They are getting the new innovative solutions. And therefore, the data that is collected is remaining representative also for studies.
Very good. Please lift your hand. Tuira, yes.
Yes. I want to mention that we also do PRO studies. They are patient-reported outcome studies. They are faster than register studies. They are also less expensive. So very often the client comes and thinks about huge projects about real-world evidence, including register studies, but then when discussions go on, it's easier for them also to decide to start with a PRO study, collecting data, different type than available in registers, and then probably continue to register study parallel or linking the data and so on. But definitely we are willing to still continue like this, so talking also about PRO.
Could that be for the Nordic, the opportunity as well?
Of course, we already do that in several countries.
Excellent.
Yeah, no, I think we should continue to market and promote the Finnish and the Nordic data gold mine. I don't think we should take it for granted. There has been a lot of work on it, as we've heard before. Personally, also as a statistician, I would like us to explore more topics on, for example, transportability, on how we can take the findings on a Nordic population and adapt it to a non-Nordic population to generate even higher regulatory grade evidence on an international level.
Very good. I think we have spent our time. Thank you for the panel.
Thank you so much, Susanna, and all of the panelists. Let's give a big hand. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. As we approach the end of today's program, it's been a very, very interesting afternoon, and it's the time now for our concluding discussion. As we have heard, Finland has a very strong foundation. We have the FinnGen, and we have our biobank network, which they prove what's possible. but we would like to really fully realize the benefits of the health data, then we need to move on to the next phase. So what that next phase needs to be. We have also heard commentaries and presentations today that touch on this question. It means clearly structural and operational changes, a clear understanding of the big picture, what is that, and active international dialogue to meet global expectations. So one thing is certain, we must bring national R&D actors together to strengthen Finland's role in large-scale international research collaborations. And now to reflect on these themes and share their perspectives, we will invite our last group of panelists on the stage to conclude today's program. So Arno Palotie, Olli Kallioniemi, Johanna Mäkelä, Mark McCarthy, and Päivi Sillanauke, you are very welcome on stage to share your final kind of visions and commentaries on these topics. We will have a couple of minutes for everyone to kind of share your thoughts. And maybe we can start from there, from you, Johanna. What is your, after everything you have heard today, what's your key takeaway from all of these discussions?
I think I chose the wrong seat. Or maybe this is the easy one I can get to start. So, of course, my key takeaway from my perspective is that we should utilize what is already built. We should learn from things that we have previously done, and we should think what we could do more efficiently and how to move forward from this. I do realize that the vision and everything, it's like it will be really challenging, but I think that the key to success is to be open and transparent and to do this in collaboration with all the parties. So I think the transparency and the collaboration are key, because this can be only built on trust if we want this to succeed. So everyone needs to be able to trust each other in this work. And maybe that is my key from here, that we should utilize what is already good in place in here, and then remember to collaborate and remember to trust each other.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Let's give applause. A very important point, the trust. And Olli, you shared the vision earlier today. Has that vision somehow moved to some direction, or are you kind of thinking about the future of all of these, building this ecosystem? Has it kind of evolved based on today's discussions?
Well, it does all the time, whether we had this discussion or not, until maybe 2 weeks when we need to wrap it up in one way or the other. And it's not the end there either. But maybe the discussion today just showed how many different angles and aspects there are in this game. So I referred to Arno's and their team heroic experience, but we have many other people who are navigating the FinGenius, FINBB, and all the companies are navigating this space as of today. But I still think that we should go back and try to improve the infrastructure so that this can be done in a second. Because it shouldn't, and in the future it wouldn't need to be this difficult. And we have an entire army of people fighting with the system that is designed for another purpose, to use it for secondary purposes, which is super difficult. So I think I come with the inspiration that we need to really suggest something that would, in the long run, and we should invest also in the future and not just do every project at a time with current tools.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mark, as you come from outside, what do you think is now the next most important step for Finland to take to the right direction?
Well, no, it's been inspiring actually. I mean, just to hear so much opportunity. I mean, it's going to take some work. Olli, you've got your work cut out to pull all this together. But I think if you can achieve this, it will be world leading what I've been thinking about is obviously there are lots of opportunities for individual companies to interact in the space. So I think there's also some work for us to do amongst the pharma companies to think about where the areas of joint activity can be as well. I mean, obviously, we've worked together very effectively on FinnGen, so we need to think about where the areas where that collaborative effort can continue. Maybe it's about laying down additional layers of research data that we can all benefit from. So that's really what I take away from this.
Yeah, wonderful. And Arno, what are your key takeaways from today's discussions?
What I welcome is that we are seriously looking ahead. As we know from history of some of the Finnish successes, the risk is that we start to get comfortable and happy with what we have. And we shouldn't do that mistake again. Inefficiency is very expensive. And going towards the ideas that Kimmo and Olli have been working on, I think is essential. As Olli says, it won't be done in a day, but we have a clear goal, and we all should work towards that and think that unless we renew ourselves and make us even better, even if we have good things going on, so even better, we are kind of quote-unquote losing the game, and as we also discussed here on the floor, so making this renew the system will also involve that there needs to be some steady funding from somewhere, so that things are not based on a year-to-year type of thinking.
And okay, Päivi, now the floor is yours. What are your kind of thoughts based on what your other commentaries have been saying here on stage today?
Yes, so I would like to really strongly emphasize that our ministry and the government and whole parliament and the political parties we have are really really wanting to have growth to Finland. So we can't continue on doing the cost cuttings. We have heard it in previous days. And here we really have this field, health and well-being. This is something where we can really get the growth. And now I want you, everyone, so I'm going to meet my minister already tomorrow and tell her he's willing to know what is then the next steps towards then getting something out of the work we already have been doing. And don't be afraid, anyone here. We are building on what we already have learned, what the structures are, but you have to think, every one of you have to think that we need changes in each organization and the ways that we are now working. And I really want you to follow then us and help us then to make Finland, to make that vision really our future, where we can then provide better together, be stronger together. But we have to do big changes and have to be able to play as a team more. But I promise you, and I do everything, and I know that all the ministries are working with me here to support this, but we need the whole field then to be the same team. We have to help our government, our politicians. In that way we can help also us, because that's the only way we can get money in the future also. So thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Päivi. And actually, okay, let's give applause here. And then I would like to actually conclude this discussion by asking you, what is the one message that you would like actually to leave the audience with, like one message, one priority from today? I think Päivi gave a great example there, so maybe we can make a round of comments on that. One message to the audience.
Maybe one message is that we have a good foundation, let's make it even better.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I think you've got a great opportunity to put Finland at the leaderboard in this area of generating foundation models of health data and using that not just, of course, to power research, but to bring in a new wave of better patient treatment and prevention.
Great.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
I fully agree with all of them, and just maybe concluding that we should definitely aim high.
Yes. Okay. I think this is a great place to end today's discussions. Let's give applause to all of the speakers today and all of you in the audience asking those questions today. The conversation certainly doesn't end here, so let's keep building Finland's health data ecosystem together. Safe travels and have a great evening. And I would also like to thank, before we go, Sitra, FINBB, FinnGen, and the Ministry of Social Affairs and Health for all of the collaboration and making this event happen. And a kind reminder to all of the speakers, let's meet here in front of the stage after this event so that we can take a joint picture. So thank you once more, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thanks.